My name is Virgil Leonti, and I'm here with Michael Gasper. And today the Senate is meeting to basically ratify the discussion, the motions. There were two motions that came up for discussion in the lower house yesterday. The first motion sought to alter the rate of VAT, and of course that was discussed last week, the rate of VAT on certain items, and the lower house came in to make some amendments to actually include some commodities that weren't already there, and also to omit some which were part of the motion. There was discussion also on the removal of VAT on some medical equipment, and also the Prime Minister announced that there would not be a health and security levy on certain equipments like an MRI, a fluoroscopy, a coloscopy, equipment to do a mammogram, ultrasounds in 3D and 4D, and heart equipment. And the Prime Minister said that it was necessary, and it was actually a shot in the arm for the health sector, considering that many St. Lucians had to travel overseas to get some important tests done. And he was saying that our professionals are just as good as anywhere else in the world. And so he felt this was a really important step in improving the healthcare services in St. Lucia.
Oui, merci un peu, Virgil. Bonjour, Sainte-Lucie. Bienvenue pour l'autre session. Ça, c'est Sénat là comme ça, c'est l'année des différents niveaux et bien chambres en parlement. Ça, c'est première, ça nous a créé House of Assembly, côté c'est maintenant qui électé en élection, avec qui a conduit par speaker, mais l'autre niveau, c'est Sénat là qui choisit les trois différents c'est mon ça c'est façade gouvernement qui est cinq monde, l'année façade opposition qui est 3, avec aussi l'année des indépendants avec qui a conduit par ça nous a créé président Sénat là avec un cas là aujourd'hui pour tout ce Sénat là c'est Sénat là, c'est en bas conduite président Alvin Reynolds. Avec il nous a préparé vite, puisque il a échappé là, ça c'est président échappé, nous allons commencer tout de suite. Mais quand Virginia Jadot, l'ami Acha Seba qui discutait hier, c'est Sénat là qui a discuté aujourd'hui. Et bien après ça, on nous allait aussi, ça fait fait.
Let us pray.
Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations, and grant that we have in thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudice, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the true maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the King, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen.
Madam Clerk, could you administer the oath to the new temporary senator, please? Thank you.
I, Nancy Charles, do solemnly affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to St. Lucia, that I will uphold and defend the Constitution and the laws of St. Lucia, and I will conscientiously and impartially discharge my responsibilities to the people of St. Lucia. I do affirm.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good morning, Senators. I have received correspondence from the Speaker of the House of Assembly advising that the following motions and bills were passed in the House of Assembly and forwarded to the Senate for its concurrence. Value Added Tax Act Resolution of Parliament to approve draft value added tax, alteration of the rate of penalty order, Health and Citizen Security Levy, Resolution of Parliament to approve draft Health and Citizen Security Levy, amendment of Schedules 1, 2, and 3 order, Value Added Tax Act, Resolution of Parliament to approve draft Value Added Tax, amendments of Schedule 1, Number 2 order, United Nations Sanctions, Counter-Proliferation Financing Amendment Act, Proceeds of Crime Amendment, Income Tax Amendment. I've also received an excuse from Senator Angelina Polius, who is unwell and therefore unable to attend today's sitting. We wish our Senator a speedy recovery. And so I want to welcome back Temporary Senator Nancy Charles to the House. And in the same note, I wish to welcome all our senators who were out last week. You were missed. And so we welcome back Senator Stanislas, Senator Jean, Senator Dr. Pauline Antoine, and all senators who were involved in carnival jumping. I hope you are refreshed and ready to go this morning. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the students from the University, my alma mater. Welcome to you, and I pray that your stay in St. Lucia will be an interesting, informative, and exciting one. I wish to commend, and I think on behalf of senators, the officers of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force for their hard work, dedication in ensuring that we had an incident and accident-free carnival celebration, and they were back and at work yesterday in the chamber and today as well. We want to commend Sergeant and his team. We also want to thank members, officers of the St. Lucia Fire Service, first responders, etc., the medical services team, workers of the Castries Constituency Council, all those who played their role brilliantly to make sure that Carnival was incident, accident-free, and the city was ready for us from yesterday morning very early. So, well done. I commend Minister Hilaire and the organizers and participants for a very successful staging of Carnival 2024. 2023, my apologies. I'm already looking forward to next year. And congratulations to all the winners. And as we were witness to, I think one of our champions was here last week, Nodi. I think he has also won the road match title. So there's 2 under his belt, Soca Monarch and road match title. So we congratulate him. And we want to wish all the students who are on vacation on our island a very safe and enjoyable vacation. I trust that we will all look out for our children as they are at home they are in the community. Let us make sure that they are safe as our children of this country. Announcements and statements from ministers. If there are no statements, motions. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. And before I proceed, may I beg your leave to just welcome back a few persons and share some words of commendation to some others. First of all, welcome back to our colleague senators who were not with us last week. For different reasons, they were seriously missed. And I note Senator Polius is still unwell, so I ask that her colleagues convey my best regards to her. Welcome also our guests from the University of Birmingham, and thank our officers who are back on duty after we know a lot of work that has been done. Permit me, Madam President, to congratulate some of our winners from the Carnival celebrations that had not been announced previously. As you mentioned, Nerdy doing the double with the Soca Monarch and the Road March, as well as the Junior Calypso King was here. I think his name is Darnell Bradley, and I saw him at the complex some time ago when he won the title, and he looks very promising. That's a future senior monarch for sure. I also want to thank the police, as we've done, the emergency services, and all the other stakeholders, the CCC, who contributed to a safe and enjoyable Carnival celebration. I want to take the opportunity on behalf of the Ministry of Creative Industries, Culture, to thank the members of our staff and the other agencies that worked very hard to ensure that our Carnival celebrations this year were the best that we could put together, and I think by all accounts, a very event. Madam President, I also wish to commend our star future Olympic gold medalist in my mind, Julian Alfred. As we heard over the last 2 days, she has dethroned a previously unbeaten American, I think known as Sha'Carri Richardson, running at 10.89 in the 100 meters and making her professional debut. In her very first professional race, she has come out on top. And I know that she's doing great ambassador's duties for us unofficially, marketing our country in a very positive way. And I look forward, as I said, to the World Championships and the Olympics, where we look forward to her putting us on the pedestal to receive a medal. Hopefully that would be gold. Madam President, on to the resolution. I beg to move the following resolution, present the following motion standing in my name. Whereas it is provided under Section 46(4)(a) of the Value Added Tax Act, Cap 1542, the Act, that the Minister responsible for finance may, by order published in the Gazette, alter the rate of penalties under the Act, and whereas it is further provided under Section 46(a)(4)(a) of the Act that an order made pursuant to Section 46(4)(a) of the Act is subject to an affirmative resolution of Parliament, and whereas the Minister of Finance seeks approval of the draft value-added tax alteration of rate of penalty order by an affirmative resolution of Parliament to alter from the first day of May 2023 to the first day of May 2024 the rate of penalty to 0% of the tax paid up to the financial year of 2021. Be it resolved that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the value-added tax alteration of rate of penalty order, which alters from the first day of May 2023 to the first day of May 2024, the rate of penalty to 0% on the tax paid up to the financial year of 2021. Madam President, just to further extend on what this motion seeks to do, we have been here before to present previous resolutions aimed at achieving a comprehensive tax reform process that this government started when we came into office. Like I mentioned last week when we were here, the various initiatives and pieces of legislation that we have amended and motions brought to this chamber have really served to create this environment where we make some alterations in our tax regime to improve the economic situation in the country and to create opportunities for both businesses and individuals to benefit and to make sure that there is more spending power on behalf of our St. Lucian folk. Madam President, we waived in the previous motion, we waived the interest on the duties, but this resolution seeks to waive the interest on the VAT, specifically, and some other taxes, including the PAYE. So the period in question would be up to May 2024, and so it basically has a sunset, it's a sunset piece of resolution. But of course, it may be very likely that we can return to make other alterations, as we have done when we consult our stakeholders after reviewing and reflecting on how it works. We have admitted as a government that there are times we may have to make changes. And so there is an expectation that this will help to improve, among other things, the balance sheets of some of our businesses, putting them in better standing with banks in terms of their ability to source resources and funds. Madam President, I did reiterate, and I will do so again the last time I spoke about on a similar motion, the dual benefit of an issue or a piece of legislation like this, where the business sector as well as the government benefits. And we believe that this will allow for our people to be able to take advantage of these benefits. Now, while we do so, we may find that in the process, some of our public servants, because some of these benefits come, may have to consider changing their tax codes so that they are not unfairly charged. They are paying their taxes within the range that they ought to. And so when they have to file for their returns, they would not find that they are in any way disadvantaged. So I take the opportunity to encourage our taxpayers to check out their tax codes, and in some cases they may need to make the changes that are necessary. So, Madam President, like some of the other resolutions that we've brought to this chamber and some of the amendments that we've made to some of our existing legislation, this is part of this government's comprehensive tax reform process, and we will continue to do so with a view to improving the capacity of our citizens to be able to spend, as well as giving our business places a fair opportunity to manage the taxes that they owe the government, as well as the taxes that they collect on behalf of the government. So I look forward to the support of this Senate for this resolution.
Senators, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the value-added tax alteration of rate of penalty order, which alters from the first day of May 2023 to the first day of May 2024 the rate of penalty to 0% on the tax paid up to the financial year of 2021. Senator Fede.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, I stand to make a few comments on the resolution that's before us today. I've heard a number that amounts to $599 million. I'm not sure whether that includes interest. I was listening attentively to the leader of government business, but in the other debates, I've heard numbers suggesting that they are somewhere in the region. It might be with the inclusion of penalties as well as principal, but maybe the leader of government business can clarify what is the real financial implications of the move that we are here on today. Madam President, the United Workers' Party went through very great pains to say to the then opposition UWP, SLP, that it was very difficult and hard for private individuals and businesses as a result of COVID. And so we had to take steps to ensure that we did everything we can to help those individuals. So you would recall, Madam President, that we had waivers on property tax for both businesses and as well as private individuals. The key here is that every time we came to the Parliament with legislation, or most of the time, we sought to ensure that we leveled the playing field. We sought to ensure that the same pain that businesses were going to be relieved from, that private individuals were also going to be relieved from that pain. Madam President, today in another motion, we will be amending the Income Tax Act, under which people pay the PAYE. I am a little disappointed that we're not doing both concurrently, and I'm a little disappointed that the same urgency that the government has to improve the balance sheet of businesses, that they don't seem to have that same urgency when it comes to helping small private citizens who are at this time, Madam President, reeling against the impacts of cost of living in the country. So often we have come here and we have said to the government that, look, St. Lucia is the third highest for inflation. People deserve a break. St. Lucia, the price of bread has gone up. The bus fares have gone up. The price of gas have gone up. The price of food on people have gone up. And we've been almost begging the administration to come up with some comprehensive plan to address the needs of individuals. But you see, it's not what people say, it's what people do. And so clearly what we see today by this administration, their priority is the balance sheet of large delinquent corporations, because the principle of this, Madam President, is that those same corporations that they're in a hurry to help have actually collected from private citizens. So the private citizens have actually done the right thing by facing the consequences. They've faced massive increases to commodities due to the implementation of VAT over the years, and they have suffered tremendously. I remember a former Prime Minister of the Labour Party, while in opposition, describing VAT as oppressive to the poor of the country, and that is on the record. So the VAT of this country decimated the people of St. Lucia in ways that the Labour Party does not want to admit. What is also very interesting and intriguing about this resolution today is that the same Labour Party that's here to say, well, let's shave off, let's give away some of our money to the big businesses, actually hauled the United Workers' Party over the coals when we sought to reduce the impact on VAT on the people of the country. And it now raises the question whether the VAT rate being implemented at 15% was too onerous and burdensome on the backs of businesses. How have businesses ended up in this way? A lot of this is before COVID. A lot of this would have happened outside of the financial crisis of 2008 because VAT was implemented after then. So in the absence of an economic crisis, in the absence of a pandemic, why was it that the balance sheets, or why was it that businesses have found themselves in such a bad position? Could it be that the businesses were telling the government then that, look, the way that you have structured VAT is decimating our cash flow? And so while a business would give an invoice to, for example, a supplier or a customer, and there's a 30-day credit, or a 60-day credit, but the government was receiving VAT from a lot of these businesses on invoices that were unpaid. And so now, you see, the government's own bad implementation of the VAT value-added tax is now catching up with it. And now we see there's a whole backlog of delinquent businesses who can't afford to keep up and keep a pace with what you're saying. Now, by your own admission coming here today, you have now appreciated that you need to help those businesses with the onerous penalties, with the burdensome rate of VAT that you have applied on the entire population. But what is more egregious is that this affected ordinary citizens in ways that they have never seen before in this country. This affected, the same poor people, the destitute that the Labour Party likes to say with their mouths that they're champion. And so, Madam President, this really did not have to happen. It didn't have to take this long for the Labour Party to understand, one, that the way that they've implemented VAT has affected the cash flow of many businesses over the years. This was reported to the government. I know that the private sector organizations would have made a number of representation in that regard to say that the VAT regime, the way it is structured, affects the cash flow of businesses. Private citizens were continuously reeling against the high increases in the supermarket prices that the country was faced. Now, I know that the Labour Party senators will get up to say, look, we had to repair the fiscal situation. But the fiscal situation that came after VAT worsened under their management. So VAT didn't help the fiscal situation at all. So yes, they collected more taxes, but when you look at the commensurate years of debt to GDP ratio with the first 5 years of VAT, you see that we had a declining fiscal situation. They went and borrowed a lot of money on the market at exorbitant fees, Madam President. And so therefore, this whole thing has been managed badly. This whole thing could have been avoidable if the Labour Party had just listened to people while they were making all of these suggestions. Now, what did they do? When we had the VAT rate, we reduced it at from 15 to 12.5. They said, oh, you gave away $52 million. That $52 million that they claim, the Social Economic Review suggests otherwise. Because what we saw, and while they say, oh no, the prices in the supermarket didn't go down, what we saw, Madam President, was that there was an increase in the collection of VAT for that year. So that if there's an increase in the collection of a consumption tax, it meant that people were purchasing more and people were buying more. People could have afforded more. And so the $52 million which the Labour Party claimed that we lost that year, that never happened. This is Labour Party economics, which the math oftentimes doesn't add up. So really and truly, Madam President, it is unfortunate that we have now come to this state. And I look forward to the day when the Labour Party will come to this bill. They owe it to the people to do something about income tax, PAYE. This government, Madam President, just recently passed a bill that would have narrowed and lessened the deductibles that the middle class of this country would have been able to benefit from the income tax. That's regrettable. By having that tax band, as you commented on your comprehensive tax policy, that really is a regressive policy in that, yes, you're trying to simplify the tax structure of the country, but at the same time, look at the financial implications that this particular move is having on the citizens of the country. So when you were able to have student loans deducted, the new regime doesn't allow that. They say that there's now a cap of 30 million. Now, yes, you can put your student loan, yes, you can put your dependents in the same basket of deductibles. But what you have done is that you have reduced the impact that the previous regime could have had. And there were many individuals that are stretched, that they are helping to pay a student loan to help with their kids' education because of a shortage of scholarships in the country. People who are saddled with mortgages in the banks. There are 2,500 secondary school graduates, and the Ministry of Education suggests that there's just about 150 scholarships. Do your math. So if you have scholarships for every single secondary school child, then I'll say you're a hero. You absolutely don't. There are 2,500 secondary school graduates in the country. So I don't know why you're alarmed, but everybody in St. Lucia cannot get a scholarship. You just don't have enough. We don't have enough to give everyone. So I want the parliamentary secretary will rise and she will give the stats that she has. But I'm telling you that we don't have enough scholarships for individuals. Not everybody that wants to go to university can, unless, Madam President, your mother mortgage your homes, their property, for you to go overseas, or unless you have a scholarship, right? You're not going to university in this country, and that is the hard truth. Most people need to work online and struggle with their job and pay the university fee, because unless their parents are willing to mortgage their property to the bank, you are not going to university in this country. So they can jump high, they can jump low. Madam President, out of the 2,500 secondary school students, we just don't have enough places, right? So then when you are going to limit the ability of the middle class to be able to do this for themselves, then this is a regressive move. All you have done, you have prioritized simplifying the tax code over at the expense of the amount of deductibles that people can get, and that's the ultimate truth, and it's the facts, right? So, Madam President, very, very, very disappointing. You know, the reason why you're seeing a lot of drama on the other side is because the truth actually hurts. And so, Madam President, the government needs to prioritize the small people of this country that are paying their taxes consistently, and the same aggression you would have had for large businesses, that same aggression you should have had to make sure that you come. In fact, you promised the income tax holders that you would raise the tax threshold, that people making $4,000 or more, right, would benefit from having to pay zero taxes. It's been 2 years and you haven't done anything about it, but yet you're coming here today, right, to remove the penalties for large businesses. Now, that speaks a lot about your priorities. If the small people that you often seek to champion only in the name of words, if you had cared about them, you would have done something about their plight here today. Since you are coming to amend the Income Tax Act, you would have, what's that, man? Absolutely, Madam President. They would have done something about those promises they have made under the Income Tax Act, as well as, Madam President, making sure that the penalties that some of those individuals, because of a number of different reasons, are unable to pay, that they would have done so, right? And so, Madam President, this whole idea of mentioning that they subsidize the gas at the pumps, while that is true, Madam President, while that is true, you speak to a comprehensive tax reform, so that's the debate. So while that is true, Madam President, the fact remains is that every government has been subsidizing gas. There's nothing new. But the price of gas, because of the Ukraine war, has reached levels that are unprecedented in this country. And you have done nothing in your power to reduce the price of gas on the backs of the people. You have maintained the same levels of subsidies on the backs of the people. Madam President, what we did in our time was that while we were taking an extra 150, but those were times when the supply of petroleum were very stable in the country, Madam President. And so that was a good time to do that, and we ensured that there was a cap of $13.95. But they have made all kinds of promises, and they have not done anything. Now, when they allow the price of gas to go up, what do you think is going to happen to bus fares? You've carried up the cost on bus drivers, and now the bus drivers now, to pay for costs, they've got to raise the fares of buses on the backs of the poor people of the country. And so when you come and you legislate these policies, and you fail to come and enact workable solutions for the people of the country, Madam President, what we are in fact doing is making life so much harder for the people of the country in St. Lucia. And so, Madam President, I'm so sorry that what I am saying here today is annoying a few, but I have to continue to speak on and champion the causes on behalf of the people, because the arrogance of this administration, Madam President, does not listen to the people when they complain about the various issues affecting them. And so that's why, Madam President, I'm spending such a long time on this bill, which is seemingly simple, but it is not simple, right? I'm saying give the same priority that you have to people who really need help. Give the same by the stroke of your pen. You can come here, you could, this is the income tax bill, we are amending it today. Why didn't you also come at the same time and do it for PAYE, people who are paying their taxes to the government? The VAT that you are coming, the penalties rather, you're coming here to award delinquent behavior, and you're punishing
Madam President,
behavior.
on a point of order.
What is your point of order,
The
Senator Jean?
member is misleading the House, Madam President, and I want to refer to Standing Order 37. First of all, the member, we are expected to debate the value added tax, alteration of rate of penalties. The member is referring to taxes that are due and not paid. This is completely different, Madam President, and misleading. In addition to that, Madam President, on Standing Order 37, the member, it states that the debate upon any motion, bill, or amendment shall be relevant to such motion. And the member has continued to stray from the motion by talking about all things that are irrelevant to the motion before us relating to the penalties on VAT and not VAT itself. Senator Fede, just to advise you that
yes, indeed, you have strayed in different areas, and I would advise you and caution you to speak to the motion which is before us. Yes? Please be so advised.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be guided by you, but I was taking my lead from the member for government business in the presentation of the
yes, there are certain issues that you raised which he did not raise. So,
yeah.
Like I said,
but he said it's a
so
comprehensive tax
yes,
reform policy.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
But you went into specifics which he did not identify. So I'd advise you again to speak to the motion which is before you. So advised. Yes.
No problem, Madam President. And so, Madam President, I will not silence my voice. I will not silence my voice. I will continue to advocate on behalf of the citizens of this country that are not powerful enough to lobby the government to get expensive accountants and lawyers to show how penalties are affecting their balance sheets. I will continue to speak on behalf of those individuals. I will continue, Madam President, to advocate on behalf of the very well-meaning and very good and loyal taxpayers of this country. I will continue to advocate on behalf of them. And so, Madam President, I reiterate the same urgency which the government had to come to improve the balance sheet of businesses. They could have today come and improve the balance sheet of the ordinary man who also needs a tax break. I thank you very much, and I rest it there.
Senator Jean.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Just briefly, Madam President, I rise in support of this resolution to amend the value-added tax order to include the alteration of the rate of penalty. Madam President, this initiative must be placed in proper context, and the people of St. Lucia must recognize the government's generous means of ensuring that St. Lucia is a better place for us to reside. But before I do that, Madam President, I wish to join my colleagues in celebrating the success of Ms. Julian Alfred on winning the 100-meter race in Hungary, and more particularly, beating Dallas's Sha'Carri Richardson. I think, Madam President, St. Lucia's pride is really shown internationally through Ms. Julian Alfred. I cannot understand how a small subvention of $150 that was given to Ms. Alfred would have been taken away from her. And look at now, we can all stand up with pride at the success of this young lady. She does it in Austin, she does it in Texas, she did it in somewhere in South America. She's now in Hungary. And I look forward to the day when she will be at the Olympics wearing the St. Lucia flag. I think, Madam President, we suppress our pride too much. By now, Julian Alfred's photo should be on every billboard right around the country. Madam President, as it relates to the removal of the penalties on VAT to businesses, I just want us to focus on who benefits. We must always look at who benefits, because I'm hearing cries, but when it was time, when we were crying, when it was time for us to cry, people were not listening. Now it is time not to cry. It is time to celebrate. It is time to applaud the initiatives of the government of St. Lucia. Because who benefits? directly the businesses will benefit because the penalties will be removed and they will have a cleaner balance sheet. But it does not stop there. A cleaner balance sheet to a business means that that business would have better capital in order to grow their business. They will be able to source loans because there are more assets than there are liabilities. A penalty is a liability on the books of a business. So by removing the penalty, the liabilities are removed. By extension, Madam President, these businesses would be better able to employ more people, buy more products, and do several things to grow their business. Stop, Madam President, we need to stop speaking to St. Lucians as if they are uneducated. The average man, this 43% mentality that we believe St. Lucians have, we realized that on July 26, 2021, that they were wrong. And so coming and cry about bread and sugar and flour, this is not the initiative that we can point on. Because this initiative, Madam President, is what will put more bread on their table. Madam President, removal of these penalties will assist businesses to better pay their staff. And you know what I see in the removal of penalties coming into the law here? This is a non-discriminatory tax waiver or penalty waiver to all businesses. Remember, Madam President, a few years ago, only one business got a tax waiver? Only one business. This initiative, Madam President, will have revenue forgone of $25.2 million. But one business was given a tax waiver of $24 million. One business. So we want to cry? We were crying then. Now it is time to celebrate, because the small business, the MSMEs, the hotels, the commercial sector, everyone who can produce to show that there are penalties because they were not able to pay the VAT at the time, they are going to get these penalties waived. We cried before. We're not crying now, Madam President. So, what I'm seeing, Madam President, is a comprehensive social and economic policy of the government of St. Lucia. It includes health care benefits to the 80+ to pregnant women, and there's more to come. We're seeing VAT removal on building materials. Who benefits? I hear people talking about they're not eating building materials. How myopic, Madam President? The little contractor, the mason, the carpenter, the laborer, all these people will benefit from the employment that will accrue to the construction sector. Don't be myopic, Madam President. Don't have tunnel vision. The people of St. Lucia everywhere will benefit. They're already benefiting from facilities fees, from laptops, from talking about scholarships, Madam President. I mean, it's good. It's really good for the heart for us to come in here and laugh. Right? It's good to come here and laugh. I really appreciate the laughter that you bring about here. Okay? So, Madam President, as I said, I would be brief, but I want to applaud the efforts of the government of St. Lucia in removing the penalties on VAT and not telling the businesses that they should not repay the VAT that has been collected. This has to be made very clear. VAT that has been collected is a commitment, is a liability that has to be paid to the government of St. Lucia. And so the government is not saying to hold the VAT that people have paid. The government is saying that the penalties which are imposed after the VAT has not been paid for a period of time, this is what that will not be required. Okay? And so this is money that the government would not have gotten anyway had the VAT been paid on time. So it's not something that you can even put on the books. So a zero amount for penalties is not going to significantly affect the books of the government of St. Lucia. Okay? And so we have to recognize that this can also be a COVID initiative, because during the period of COVID when VAT was collected, it was difficult for them to repay because some businesses kept their staff and still had to pay their staff. Right? This is what the people of St. Lucia has done. But during COVID, Madam President, the then government saw it fit to give an investor who came with their hands swinging $30 million to buy our own property. What were we saying for the businesses of St. Lucia during this COVID period? So, Madam President, when it's good, say it's good. Leibo, Dibo, Madam President. Say, Mampeya, Kai benefit, Adida Initiative Salah, and I want to applaud the government and give my fullest support to this resolution. Thank you.
Senator Charles.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, and let me say, Madam President, sorry, and let me say good morning to all of St. Lucians. I consider it an honor to be here again. I would like to send speedy recovery to my colleague, Senator Polius, who for the last 2 sittings, she's not been well. When I spoke to her yesterday, she was recovering, but I hope she's following and she's listening, and hopefully she will be in a better position at the next sitting to take her rightful place. So I am only her substitute, and I hope I am going to do justice to her today. Madam Speaker, I rise, Madam President, sorry, I rise to support the motion that is being presented here this morning. But before so, I ask your permission to join my colleagues as well in extending congratulations to Julian Alfred. Being a parent of an athlete, I can certainly tell you that at home we were all shouting and jumping all over the place when Julian finally won. And we were able to celebrate because, of course, defeating Miss Richardson was the cream on top of the pie for us. And Madam President, as we speak about Julian Alfred, I do want to say that the government of the United Workers' Party is very proud of the support that we provided to Julian Alfred through the National Lotteries Authority. And I can certainly tell you, because I was a member of the board, and our colleagues said that we need to stop speaking to St. Lucians as if they are uneducated, Madam President. Today, St. Lucians know that every single thing that was said to them in the campaign, Jordiat, everybody knows that was a lie. So St. Lucians are no longer uneducated as we think they are. St. Lucians are well-read. St. Lucians can see the truth for themselves. And so at the end of the day, we can provide all that information. In fact, they have access to the information, Madam President. you know for sure that they are in government. They have access to all the documents. And they can access documents that shows that Julian was given a stipend from the time she left St. Lucia and she was living in Jamaica. Different houses and circumstances. Support was provided to her by the National Lotteries Authority all the time. And they can find documents to show that Julian Alfred, her coach, Mr. Tuatine, my good friend, and her mother, they can confirm that they were paid, they were given tickets to go, and stipends were given to them to attend her first meet in Jamaica to provide support for her. And so at the end of the day, when we want to come here and we want to speak about a stipend, and madam, I would like to clarify, the stipend was not taken from the young lady, you know. When the new board came in, there was a recalculation to look at what the support, there was the elite athlete program, and there were different types of support that were given. So it was only for a short period of time the support stopped so that we could recalculate and re-give the support, and they want to make it an issue and say we took the stipend from her. So St. Lucians know, I want St. Lucians to know, and Julian herself and her coach can tell you the type of support and the level of support that has been given to her. And even at the end of the day, when Julian went away, you remember that incident, Madam President? When she was supposed, allegedly, apparently, her uniform, it disappeared. Apparently, whoever had it in one place and she was in another place. Who was the person who made the call and ensured that she had something to wear on that day, on that meet to represent St. Lucia? It was the leader of the opposition and former Prime Minister, Alan Chasney. So when you want to come here and postulate and speak to the fact, Julian Alfred, about a small stipend, St. Lucians know, and I want St. Lucians to know, that that is nothing further from the truth. But back to the motion, Madam President, back to the motion. I rise in support of the motion because, yes, I am. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that we are going to write off. We are going to stand up here and we're going to write off. And yes, I did listen to the presentation in the previous debate yesterday, the Honorable Prime Minister speaking to how much money we were going to write off in penalties and interest accumulating from unpaid VAT. So for the businesses, when you look at it, they would have had that money outstanding on their books for a long time, and it's a good thing. But there's always a but. There is always a but, because it's not everything that is good, and it does not have certain disadvantages and certain things that we need to take into consideration. So I want to remind my colleagues opposite that 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, and we come into the date, I saw a video of the then leader of the opposition in a car, and it was a beautiful ad, Madam President. And there he was talking to the people of St. Lucia, and he said, if you elect me, or when you elect me as the next Prime Minister of St. Lucia, here's what I'm going to do for you when it comes to and I heard my colleague mention about the benefits. Oh, I am going to increase the income threshold, and I am going to pay everybody $5,000 who's owing income taxes $5,000 and below, and I'm going to pay you off. But today, have we seen it?
Tax returns.
Campaign promise. It was a campaign promise. Have we seen it? We have not seen it. And so yesterday, yesterday, I heard the Prime Minister begging, I heard him begging everybody to say, I am writing off the penalty, I am writing off the interest. So he's asking businesses to come in and pay the principal so that I can pay you back. So if you don't come in and pay, then I cannot pay you back. But all the monies that have been paid before, and all the time during the campaign, that's not what he was saying. He was not saying, when you pay me, and if you pay me, then I will pay you back. He was making it seem so nice and dandy that everybody was going to get their refund on time, and he was going to pay them back. But yesterday, he's saying to them, pay your principal so that I can pay you back. So, Madam President, when I looked at it and I looked at writing off the interest, and I knew that's where perhaps that some of my colleagues were going, that this is about the businesses. This is about writing off money for the businesses. But I can certainly tell you, and I want to say to the business community, that whilst you will be benefiting from this, this is not about you. This is not about the businesses, Madam President. Do you know who this is about? This is about the government clearing their books so that they can have more fiscal space, so they can go and borrow more money on the head of the ordinary taxpayer so that they can bring up our debt in this country. That's what this is about. Why? Because for years you have had, Madam President, you see, when you get them, Madam President, and they don't realize that, when you get them, that we have had many years of tax liability on the books of this government. Yes. And the Prime Minister made mention, I think you said it was about $599 million. And so what this does, Madam President, when you go to the financial institutions to borrow money as a government, then you would have all those tax liability. And so those financial institutions will be asking you, some of the questions they will be asking you. They say to you, well, you have this liability for a long time, and it does not augur well for you. It seems you have an issue with collection as a country, right? These are some of the questions that CDB and IMF and whoever they go to and ask for money for will be asking. And so they're saying, well, what are the laws that you are putting in place to ensure that people comply with paying their taxes and their penalties? Where it is, what is the enforcement that you are putting in place? And so forth. So it raises a lot of questions about the collection. And of course you would agree with me, Madam President, that if you cannot show the financial institution how and why you're going to collect the money, then they will not borrow you more money. And so what the government is doing is claiming that they're doing this for the businesses, but they're doing it for themselves. It is for themselves. It's always about them. It's never about the people. It's never about the businesses. It's always about themselves, okay? And so it's smoke and mirrors. And so while it is a good thing for the businesses, I'm saying you are going to be benefiting as a result of it. This is not about you. And so at the end of the day, I want to caution the government that when you go ahead and leader of government business, he can take that back to the Minister of Finance. This is a caution from the members of the opposition that we're saying to you that we should not make it a habit, because remember, you have financial institutions that you are owing money to, financial institutions that you will be going to on a monthly, and you would have had it in your estimate that you would need to borrow money. And so you need to show those financial institutions in the international community that the government has ways and means of ensuring that there is good compliance with the laws, that the government can show that there are no questions about the collection of taxes and monies owed to the government, and that at the end of the day, the government you do not want the government to be creating a bad precedent, so that it continues to be every single time you have businesses or small businesses who are not able to pay their VAT, and then the penalties accrue and the interest accrue, and that you make it a habit of just writing off. So whilst it's a good thing in this sense, I think the government needs to review the policy, review their policies in terms of collection, review their policies in terms of ensuring that there is compliance, so that you can ensure that government can collect its money. But another thing that struck me with this, Madam President, as I said, it was a good thing, was it's interesting, and I laugh at it. It is this government continues to give with one hand and they take with the other hand, and it is the same thing. In one hand, they're giving away and they're saying to small businesses, we're going to write off this penalty, we're going to write off that money. But do you know what they did last week, Madam President? At the same time that they're saying to small businesses, we're going to write it off, they put a 2.5% levy on them to collect the money right back. So in one hand, they were saying to you, we're going to write it off, but on another hand, they were going to collect $33 million. $33 million, they put a 2.5% levy on those same small businesses. The same single mother, poor people, low-income people that they're talking about. They put a 2.5% levy on them to collect on their heads $33 million just to make up for that money that they just give away. They're just giving away that money and they take it. So it's a government qui can buy yon lame et qui can vie pour yon l'autre lame right away. So there's no benefit, no contra. They give it to you and they take it to you right away. And so at the end of the day, Madam President, when I hear people postulating and talk about that we gave one business a write-off of $24 million, every single person in St. Lucia knows that. And we have said that over and over again. And I was about to stand on a point of order and I say it doesn't make sense. Because you know what, Madam President? Sometimes people think that if you repeat a lie often enough that people will believe it. And so you correct them and they still continue to speak the lie. Sandals or the business in question was never given a tax like you just came on with. It was a write-off, Madam President. Every single person knows, and we've explained that over and over and over again, that there was an issue in terms of the insurance and the calculation of the insurance and what was applicable and what was not applicable. But do you know, Madam President, that it did not occur under a UWP government. No. This thing occurred under a St. Lucia Labour Party government. And when they looked at the calculation and they realized that, listen, this thing is not supposed to be included in the calculation of the tax, they wrote to the Inland Revenue seeking clarification, and there was a back and forth. Madam President, there are letters that were presented, there are cabinet memos that were presented, that the cabinet of the St. Lucia Labour Party discussed, and there were commitments that were given to the Prime Minister at the time that he would have looked into the matter. So the principle, which is what we're doing here today, Madam President, the principle was only $6 million. But because they were just playing ball back and forth, this money increased to penalties and interest, and it amounted to $24 million, Madam President. And that is how the $24 million accrued. It wasn't $24 million that the company owed, you know. $6 million was the principal. And because of that delay and back and forth every day, back and forth, it ended up being $24 million. And so what happened? When this matter was brought to the United Workers' Party administration, the then Prime Minister did the right thing. He never wrote it off, Madam President. Just contrary to what they... No, Alan Chasney never wrote off anything. He did the right thing. He wrote to Inland Revenue, and he had the Department of Inland Revenue to review the matter, and he told them to look at the matter and see whether this was an anomaly or an error and make your recommendation. And so the recommendation came from the Inland Revenue Department, the controller, and he came to cabinet to say this was wrong, the calculation was wrong, we charged them wrongly, and so we're asking for you to write it off. So that's the fact. That's the facts, and people are no longer uneducated, Madam President. So again, I would like to say to my colleague, I think the leader of government business, last week he said there's a particular way, you know, that things happen in the Senate. In the Senate, we're supposed to speak facts and truth, Madam President. This is what is the decorum that's supposed to be here, facts and truth. We don't continue to propagate propaganda as if we're out there on the streets, on a political platform, and think people are going to believe it. Truth is what is supposed to happen in this house, Madam President. And so I want to put for the record that there was never a write-off, as the people say. This was a recommendation from the controller, from the Department of Inland Revenue, that there was a wrong calculation, and that is how it was made. So at the end of the day, but I can say, Madam President, are you aware that there was a tax? I mean, you want to talk about $24 million? There was a tax waiver on PAYE. Do you know what is PAYE, Madam President? PAYE is my money, my income tax when the month is ended, that X company would deduct from my salary, and they would now have to pay my money on my behalf to the Inland Revenue Department. Are you aware, Madam President? I don't know if it was because of friendship, I don't know if it was because of a deal, I don't know what was the reason, but PAYE amounting to millions of dollars was written off for a particular company. Why they're not talking about that? Why they're not talking about that one, Madam President? But they want to talk about a miscalculation of $24 million. And I have said consistently that this government is in power. There is nothing that prevents the current administration to go back to the matter, to review it, and to say to the Inland Revenue Department, you were wrong, and we will ask them sandals to repay the money. If you think so badly about it, if you think it was wrong, reopen it, go back and look into it, and make them pay. You're in a position to make them pay. You are now in a position to make them pay. Make them pay. But stop talking about it as if this is something that happened and something that was wrong. So, Madam President, as I said, I want to caution the government. This is a good thing, but I want to caution the government that you do not make it a habit. Because at the end of the day, when you go to your financial institutions to borrow money, these are some of the policies that they will be looking at in terms of your collection, whether you have effective collection, effective management of your funds so that you can borrow money. But at the end of the day, as I said to the businesses, you will benefit, but this is not about you. This is just about the government. They have this huge budget that they have passed. They need money to fund all the expenditures. They have all their lavish expenditures for their $1.4 million traveling and over $1 million to fix whoever houses and all the millions of dollars for housing and entertainment.
Madam President, on a point of order, Madam President, this is the second time that the member...
What is your point of order, Senator?
The member is misleading the House. This is the second time the member has said that the government has spent over $1 million to refurbish a house. I would like for that member to present these figures to the Parliament, because we have never been told that there was an amount of $1 million spent to refurbish any house. So if the member cannot provide that information in this sitting, I would ask that she retract this statement, please.
Where is your
May I inform Senator Jawahir that the opposition senator is not obligated to provide information pertaining, excuse me, Senator, is not obligated to provide that kind of information to the government side or here. However, Senator Nancy Charles, I would like to caution you of the information that you are providing here in this honorable house. If you want to quote, I would prefer that you quote, though you're not obligated to, but you spoke of $1 million being used to repair a house. Okay, it is flung out there in the open, but as people who are responsible in our discourse, I would want you to provide that information to this house and be specific. Which house are you referring to? Where did you get that information from? I would like it for our own edification, if you could. If not, I would think that you please refrain from this a second time.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I will provide you the information after the break. Again, this is information that is available to the Parliament of St. Lucia. It's in the estimates of expenditure on the capital expenditure, but I'll make it available to you.
Madam Senator, you said a house.
I will
okay,
make available
it was referring to,
information.
it sounded like somebody's private home. Like I said, we are a place where we provide good information, so please, if you're going to do this, you do it properly.
Thank you. We'll do so, Madam President. And so, again, as I come to conclude my presentation, as I was saying, this, again, is to provide fiscal space, as I said, for the government so that they can borrow more money. They need to borrow more money to fund the expenditure in the estimates. And so what this is going to do is to clear their books and give them more fiscal space to borrow more money to be able to finance some of the expenditures. So again, Madam President, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity. And as I said, this is a motion that I do support. Thank you very much.
Senator Aziz.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam President, colleagues, senators. Just two quick things I'd like to share with you. Blowing through my mind, Madam President, in our exchanges this morning. The first is I'd really like to add my voice to the commendations to Ms. Julian Alfred on her tremendous accomplishments and her current trajectory to raise the flag of St. Lucia even higher at an international stage. But I really must confess to you my disappointment with some of the exchanges that have preceded my rise this morning. I just think it's really, really in poor taste for us as a people to be trying to nitpick over and trying to stake claim to ride the coattails of an athletic champion right now. And I think it might be a wiser consideration for us to simply rally around Ms. Alfred as a people, express our support to her, provide the resources that she needs to move to higher heights, and just continue to inspire and encourage this daughter of the soil for what she is doing at the end of the day. I think that might be a wiser course for us as a people, especially given the psychological issues that she must be working through every day as she psychs herself up to compete against the best on the planet. And right now to look back, and I think to know that all of this is being shared globally on the digital platforms, it just really doesn't resonate well with me, the course of the exchanges that have preceded me this morning. So we may wish to contemplate that. And now to another substantive contribution that I'd like to make, Madam President. I cannot speak on the resolution before the House. I cannot speak to the political intentions of this resolution before the House. I don't think that I could put myself in the shoes of either opposition or government senators to speak to its political intention. But I can speak, though, to its hard, black and white, factual implications on the private sector. And I'd like to stand and say that this resolution before the House is a welcome reprieve for the private sector. I'd like to say that the resolution represents what we have been calling for throughout the recovery from 2020's pandemic, that we need to approach this recovery from a business unusual standpoint. And so that means making considerations, concessions, and doing things a little differently, which will incentivize and stimulate our private sector to continue along its current trend, which seems to be working because we are registering economic growth as a country. So we must be doing something right. So now is the time for us to continue along that path and stimulate our private sector. The harsh reality is, Madam President, sometimes we can get lost in the excitement of a very successful jazz event. We can get caught up in the excitement and the revelry of what is turning out to be, what is looking like a super successful carnival event. Now it's easy to get lost and ride this wave of excitement as we see our orange economy blossoming and generating opportunities and jobs for the creative arts industries. And it's easy to get caught up in that excitement, but the harsh reality is, for many private sector operators, we are not out of the woods as yet. Doing well, but not quite there. And so we are still threatened by the negative impacts of inflation. We are still threatened by macro issues that operate at a global scale but affect the way we do things locally. We are very threatened by competition globally and what can be done at a less expensive scale to the high operating costs that our local businesses face, manufacturers and otherwise. And we are also still struggling as a private sector with issues of productivity and absence of efficiencies at both a public sector and at a workforce level. So from a private sector point of view, I think many would welcome this reprieve. Many would welcome what this resolution will promise, because it will hit the books in a positive way. So what happens when it hits the books in a positive way, Madam President? It buys us time to map out more medium and long-term sustainable solutions. It gives us an opportunity to work and recreate and retweak our public sector systems, our whole tax regimes, our incentives, so that we can access a more sustainable growth trajectory forward. So for now, this is exactly what is necessary to excite your private sector, to create liquidity within the system, to divest, which is critical to our survival. In business, they say you either grow or you perish. Here is an opportunity being provided to the private sector to reapply cash towards divesting. It is an opportunity to settle debts, right, that are on the books. Debts which have been incurred from since 2020 and shortly thereafter to continue to keep your operations flowing. Debt to settle moratoria that was established, right, but perhaps not forgiven in so many instances. An opportunity to expand now, because now is when the opportunity is presenting itself. And this investment and divestment, which can be better done by your private sector than by governments, gives us an opportunity to drive employment where we need it, within the private sector. So for these reasons, Madam President, I put to you that from a private sector level, I think there will be, this resolution is going to be welcomed with open arms, and we look forward to the application of possible cash flows towards an expansion and a rejuvenation of our private sector, and hoping that ultimately this is going to hit the government coffers in VAT collections and other taxes and other transactional taxes. Thank you very much. That is my addition to the resolution before us.
Senator Toussaint.
Thank you, Madam President. As I rise, Madam President, to support the motion before us, I want to join those before me in first congratulating all of those who we had not yet had a chance to congratulate in terms of the winners of the different categories during the carnival period, Madam President. I want to also acknowledge the students who were with us this morning, fewer in numbers this morning, but it's always pleasant to have them here, Madam President, in the hope that they would be able to take something from us that they will be able to use both in their school life as well as their work life as they move on, Madam President. I would also like to take this opportunity, Madam President, to recognize my daughter who is in the gallery. She is here with me today. It's something that she's wanted to do for a while, but of course, because she's at school, she's here today because school is out. So I want to just thank her. And as little as she is 9 years old, but she continues to support the ventures of her mother. And she normally misses the opportunity during the live session because she's at school, but is always interested in what goes on in the Parliament. And of course, I have a greater duty, Madam President, to ensure that I present myself and represent my thoughts and my deliberations in a well-mannered way, Madam President, when I stand in this house, because I know that the children are ever so watching us, Madam President. And so, Madam President, I now move to the substantive matter before us, Madam President. Madam President, last week we debated perhaps the sister of this motion, which is looking at the removal of the interest on the VAT collected, which is due to the government. And today we look at the removal of the penalties, Madam President. Madam President, of course, like I indicated before, I support the motion before us with the understanding that there are times in your life, whether as an individual, as a business, as a government, that you have to take these types of decisions if in fact you understand that the impact, I think that this is a phrase that we all know, that sometimes when you take decisions or when you are making a decision and you evaluate the decision, you ask yourself whether the end justifies the means, Madam President. And I think this is a classic case of such. Madam President, I've heard some things this morning that are a bit disturbing to me. And one of them that struck me, Madam President, was whether we understand that businesses do not operate in silos within the economic space within a country. Whether we understand the connectivity and the connectedness of a business, whether small or large, and how it fits in to the society, Madam President. Do we understand the phenomena of whatever goes into a business is able to come out through, whether it's employment, generation of employment, Madam President, or corporate social responsibility and so on. Because, Madam President, when you hear people speak of that this is intended to help the business, but again, I think that the independent senator who went just before me did the justice to explaining that if it assists the business, Madam President, we ultimately understand that eventually it will also filter into the little nooks and crannies within the society. Because a business that is able to have a better fiscal space, because they're able to deal with their liabilities, Madam President, it means that they can now they're in a better position to approach, say, financial institutions, Madam President, to get loans and so on. And what would the loans be used for? The loans most likely will be used for expansion of their businesses, Madam President. And what is the benefit of expansion of their businesses, Madam President? And so we need not mislead our people, Madam President, into making them believe that if your neighbor is doing well, and I think that this is a phenomena that has been going on for a while now, and it is synonymous to the opposition, Madam President, that if your neighbor is doing well, that eventually it will not filter through, Madam President. But it means if your neighbor, if the senator next to me is doing better, Madam President, it means that I may now be in a position for her to be able to hold my hand, for her to be able to help me. But if we're all there like crabs in a barrel, Madam President, trying to scratch and get to the top, because we're all in a bad situation, who's helping who, Madam President? And so that's important. Madam President, we're doing it for ourselves. I heard that term being bandied. We're doing it for ourselves. The government is doing it for themselves. Madam President, who is the government? Kileski gouvernement, Madam President. And they're doing this because they need to fund their budget. Madam President, the items in the budget, who ultimately benefits, Madam President? Who ultimately benefits, Madam President? If the government is at a position where they can collect the necessary revenue to fund the budget, Madam President, it means resources at school will be better, Madam President. Nice. It means perhaps we can increase now. We can pay not just the facilities fee, but the other fees at the school, Madam President. It means that healthcare will be better, Madam President. It means that the roads will be better, Madam President. It means that so many things will be improved, Madam President. Of course, the government needs money to fund its budget, Madam President. But who is the budget for, Madam President? Madam President, nous ka try confuse moun. Nous ka try confuse moun, Madam President. Gouvernement, it's a known fact, gouvernement ni pour acheter l'argent, yo ni pour joindre l'argent côté yé. Pour un acier qui c'est bagay là qui en budget ça a fait, Madam President. But by qui laisse bagay là en budget yé. Madam President, bagay en budget là ou di ou éprouver manière bagay ka fait dans l'hôpital, Madam President, because gouvernement ni là pour faire. Madame President, c'est pas la caille moi l'hôpital là ou ça. L'hôpital là ka servi tout monde Jean pays. So why would we be averse, Madam President, to understanding that if the government can now find an avenue whereby they can encourage these business persons, these business places to pay up what's owing, Madam President, of course it's to the benefit of the government. Because the government has a responsibility to manage the funds under its watch to ensure that there is some level of equality and equity in the provision of services for the people of this country, Madam President. Madam President, this is basic in economics, Madam President, right. Not double degree economics, Madam President. Basic economics that every household can understand, Madam President. If you have money, and perhaps the issue is a fear to the ability to manage the money, Madam President, and maybe this comes from, and last week, I remember the leader of government business talk about absolution, Madam President, confession and absolution, and maybe this is in line with this, Madam President. Maybe we're speaking from a position when we understand what happened when people have money at their disposal, Madam President, and what they will do with it. So we are afraid that perhaps persons will follow in our footsteps and do the same with it. But Madam President, I support this resolution because a resolution that seeks to encourage business persons to pay up. And we're not giving anything to the business places, you know, Madam President. We're not giving anything to them. We're not saying to them, si ou puede $2 VAT la mese muna. Nou pa kadu chebe yon ek banu yon nou sav. Nou kadu se penalty a ki accumule an leila. Chebe, cheni, ek banu saki san nou. This is what this is about, Madam President. This is what it is about, Madam President. And the reality is, as much as this may not apply across the board, Madam President, I work with a business and we registered for VAT. I personally walk into the Inland Revenue Department in Beaufort on a monthly basis and I submit my remittance form with my check attached. But the reality is, it is due on the 21st. But there are times when I remit it on the 30th. Or in the beginning of the other month. That's the reality. There are times when the resources within the confines of the organization does not allow us to do it on time. Sometimes you're waiting for a director to come and sign a check and it's a day or two late. It means interest and penalties are accumulated. But the records are there to show that we submit on a monthly basis accompanied with the check, the corresponding check. But I am owing Inland Revenue interest and penalties, Madam President. And so the government is now telling me, hold the interest and the penalties because we've collected what you've remitted, what you've collected from the people. That is the mandatory obligation, Madam President. And so I do not understand why we need to flip it and flop it like that. And Madam President, I heard gouvernement ka bayek yo lame, e gouvernement ka point ek lot lame. And Madam President, again I say this is a session of absolution et confession. My son is at confirmation retreat this week, and I know by tomorrow he will be facing the priest for confession and absolution, Madam President, and I feel that I've started the journey for him because the members opposite sat in a government, some of them in a cabinet where VAT was reduced from 15% to 12.5%, but at the same time, $1.50 was added to tax, Madam President. And in the same breath, at the same people of St. Lucia, who they claim to be crying for now, not made noise about tax on Shebo and tax on Bude, we would have been taxed for these things as well, Madam President. Isn't that a classic example of buy ek point, Madam President? And we speak about it now as if we can't even touch it or we forget or we don't know that we did it too. What did you do for the people? Les gens payés à within the previous 5 years. If that's what you're crying for, you just start to cry.
That's it.
The people of St. Lucia remembered that when they went to the polls, Madam President. They realized that their cries were not being listened to. They were letting all the people bray, Madam President. That's the situation we were under, Madam President. And then we come here and to use the same words, postulate as if we forget. Madam President, we have not forgotten. We have not forgotten, Madam President. Madam President, again, I say that I support this initiative. And Madam President, I do not want to go down that road. And I think that the independent senator needs to be applauded for the way he couched the Julian Alfred issue. And I too, like those before me, want to place on the record how elated I am as a St. Lucian to see that little flag way to the top of the charts, Madam President. I feel proud as a St. Lucian, Madam President. And then it's no wonder, and again I say I applaud what the member before me said about not using this as, I'm using my own words, as a political football, and I think that's important. I think if not at any other time, when there are things like that we are proud of, we should come together as a people, Madam President, and celebrate the victory and the success of our people. But I am not surprised, Madam President, that this issue has been floated around and kicked around in that way. Because, Madam President, karma has a way of coming back full circle, Madam President. Because when we are in a position of power, we sit and we postulate and we say these types of things that were said, Madam President, back in the day about ministers' account and about all types of things, Madam President. And again, we are at the door of mercy, Madam President, right, where we have to confess and where we have to take absolution, Madam President. And Madam President, the member on the other side is, I know her to be a church lady. Sometimes I'm conflicted about it, but I know her to be a church lady. I think she preaches, Madam President, on the pulpit. And so I understand why she needs to be close to her confession and her absolution. But Madam President, we have to be correct in the things we do.
Madam President, I rise on a point of order.
What is your point of order, Senator Fede?
It is the standing orders find it absolutely out of order that another senator will speak on the conduct of another senator. She can speak to the issues, but it's going too far now about people's religion and all that stuff. That's not necessary.
Please proceed, Senator.
Thank you for your protection, Madam President.
Which one?
Madam President, and it's something that's always said across the table. Normally when something is said and there is probably a bit of activity happening on this side, they say it's because it pitches you, so I understand, Madam President. And so I will end there, Madam President, by again reiterating my support for the resolution and also to encourage the businesses, Madam President, to take advantage of this resolution, this initiative, to ensure that it makes it simpler for them to remit what is actually due to the government, Madam President. And I did indicate last week, Madam President, when we looked at the interest, that perhaps there are certain things that we need to look at within the Inland Revenue Department to perhaps increase their ability to collect, Madam President, the ability to be able to go into these businesses and do what is legal and necessary to ensure that the collection is done on time, Madam President. And I heard on the other side that we should not set precedents. I think it's a little too late now for us to say let's not set precedent as it relates to amnesties and removal of penalties and interest, Madam President. I think the call for not setting precedents is a little too late because, like I said last week, this is something that has been done time and time again. And so I think the long-term solution, even at this time, Madam President, is to look within the Inland Revenue Department and try to determine what probably is the issue and how we can ensure that we encourage businesses to actually remit what is due to the government, Madam President, on a timely basis so that we don't constantly have to come in and give them that level of reprieve as it relates to, in this case, penalties. Madam President, I thank you.
Senator Stanislas.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, honorable senators, and let me welcome the students from Birmingham to the chamber this morning, Madam President. It's been an exciting morning, I would say, so far, Madam President, for such a straightforward resolution, a motion. Madam President.
Good start.
But Madam President, I stand in support of the motion as presented by the leader of government business. However, Madam President, I have my concerns with the motion. And one of the concerns, which I think both of my colleague senators have articulated, Madam President, is yes, it's good to give businesses a reprieve. We understand that this is going to create some fiscal space for those businesses to continue to grow, to expand, and create opportunities for our people. But I'm concerned, Madam President, that maybe there should have been a caveat in there that if you are to get the 0% waiver of the penalty, that there should be some form of measurement where you have to create X amount of jobs or whatever, just to encourage businesses to further contribute towards the employment and so on in the country, Madam President. I also believe maybe there should be, instead of 0%, there should maybe have been a 0.5% or 1% penalty. Because I'm saying that because, Madam President, I don't think we want businesses to get the impression that they're getting everything free. That in the next 2-3 years, government will come back. Government will come back again and waive a penalty. You know, you do not want to reward that kind of behavior, that delinquency amongst businesses, Madam President. So these are my concerns about it, Madam President, but I think it is good, especially at this point in time when we have the inflation at 6.4% and the struggles that small businesses and, in fact, all businesses are going through, and the people of St. Lucia, Madam President. Madam President, a lot have been said this morning. A lot on this motion, a lot out of what's on paper. Okay. And Madam President, like other colleagues, I would like to congratulate Julian Alfred on her outstanding performance in Hungary. Very talented young lady, and I think she has a very bright future out there in athletics, and looking forward to next year that she will bring gold at the Olympics to St. Lucia and make us even prouder, Madam President. But Madam President, I believe that the back and forth which transpired there this morning, we should cease and desist from this, Madam President. Madam President, this young lady is out there. She is not representing a yellow St. Lucia or a red St. Lucia. She's representing St. Lucia, Madam President, and I am aware of support that she has gotten from leader of the opposition, from members on the government side, from many other persons, and because we are all proud of her, and we should not try to politicize and play games with her success at the moment, because she is not there to represent UWP or Labour, but the people of St. Lucia, and we are proud of her, and we just want to continue to support her in whatever way that we can. And the government should try to put as much resources behind this young lady as possible so that she could make it continue to be on top of her game out there for us, Madam President. Madam President, I'm very happy that my colleague Senator Charles was able to explain this sandals matter. It has come up many times, and I was happy that she was able to clarify, you know, this issue. Senator Jean brought in the Cabot matter again, and I'm saying that yes,
Senator, I don't think she mentioned her name, and I think you should refrain from mentioning her name.
My apologies.
The $30 million.
Maybe she said about the $40 million. She made mention of the $40 million, and I know where she was going, Madam Senator. So I'm just saying that again, we understand it was a loan.
Senators, there shall be no argument. I have spoken,
and I have moved on.
Senator Fede, in particular, I have spoken. It will not be mentioned. Please move on.
Yes. And I'm saying that I have moved on, Madam President, that we all know it was a loan and what transpired and so on. So, Madam President, you know, it's a good motion presented. I support it. But like I said, I have those concerns, Madam President. I thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. I honestly did not believe that at midday today, I would have been standing here to rebut on this very first motion. Even in the lower chamber where it is well known that a lot of engagement goes on various motions and bills. That did not happen. And I'm trying to figure out, well, what exactly is going on here this morning, that we are here at midday still trying to get through the first motion on the table. Not that I am against the discussion, but I really am trying to sort that out. Before I move on, let me join my colleague Senator in welcoming our students, our young students who are in the gallery and who are members of their family. And I think it is good that when we have students around, I hope the leader of opposition business is listening, that we conduct ourselves in a way that sets the example for them. They must not begin to think that politicians are people who say things that are not true and say things that are, can characterize others in negative ways unnecessarily. So, Madam President, as a good old teacher, I will try my best to remain within that realm of sticking to the issues that we discussed. First of all, I'm trying to figure out what exactly is the position of the opposition on this particular motion. Because in order for you to be able to respond to a debate or a motion or a position, you have to first of all know what the position is. We are here with this motion that specifically refers to the levy and penalties on the income tax levy and penalties. The motion, when I went through it and I read through it, Madam President, speaks specifically to value-added tax, alteration of rate of penalties. And I sat here, listened to three different members of the same opposition. I would like to think they're in the same opposition. Give three completely different positions on the same motion. And so it is going to be a little, bear with me, Madam President, it'll be a little bit difficult for me to respond because I am yet to figure out what exactly is the opposition's position on that motion. So, first of all, I think I want to thank the independent senator who quite correctly stayed away from the whole political thing and gave a business sector's perspective on why the motion is a good one and one that is in the interest of the businesses and the country. Now, first of all, there was an attempt by the first speaker of the opposition, the leader of opposition business, to attack the motion and suggest that it was in the interest of large businesses. I wrote that down. It had nothing to do with the people. It was about the government looking after the interest of large businesses. And then went after the balance sheet argument. Then the second opposition member said, no, it's not about large businesses at all. It's about the government trying to create fiscal space so that it can go and borrow money. And then when I thought, okay, that's two arguments, then finally the third member of the same opposition says, I support the motion. And that was alarming. Correct, but alarming. It's a good one, but I think the percentage should be different. Instead of giving a zero break and removing all the penalties, don't make people believe that it's for free. You should probably have taken a 1.5 or so. So, Madam President, what exactly, or whatever figure he suggested, or 0.5, I stand corrected, but to suggest that it's a good thing, but I think you're giving too much. So here we are, Madam President. What is the position of this, Your Majesty's opposition? What exactly are they trying to say? And you know what, Madam President? I came up with my own position or my own suggestion on what I think is going on. You see, when you come to the Senate with no intention to give value or to be truthful to what is before you, and you go out there to try to attack it for whatever reason, for attacking sake, this is exactly what happens. You end up with a whole bouillon, a whole soup, a whole convolution of ideas and positions that takes you all over the place. And so I will attempt, Madam President, just to refute some of the misleading arguments that were presented this morning. I can't sit here in a parliament, and there is something before us that is very straightforward, and I think the third member of the opposition, Honorable Stanislas, said so. This is a straightforward motion, and there are so many conflicting views by the same group on it. What are they really telling St. Lucians? That we don't know how we feel about the removal of the penalties on VAT? We don't know how we feel? It's for businesses? No, it's not for businesses. It's for big business? No, not big business. And then it's government creating fiscal space. What is going on here, Madam President? Why do I have to sit here for an hour and a half to engage and entertain this? This is not fair to our taxpayers. This is not fair to the people who take time to listen to the arguments in this honorable chamber. This is making a mockery of a place where we have intelligent people who come to debate on intelligent matters. We have guests, students of politics, students from Birmingham University. You expect people to hear a position by the government supported. The opposition can come with their position and make their case. You're all over the place. And so, Madam President, on the matter of the balance sheet, let us suppose that was their position. I will say to the government, to the opposition, that this motion is as much about the businesses as it is about the regular average St. Lucians. And so why do I say so? While it is going to give the businesses a break to improve their balance sheet, to improve their cash flow, to enable them to employ more people and meet their commitments, it creates opportunities for employment and for economic activity. So just in case they were not sure, let me help. And to create a balance where the focus is not on the businesses alone, this government has brought in two initiatives that are directed to small businesses and ordinary St. Lucians. Let me remind the opposition of what they are. One of them is the youth economy. The Youth Economy Agency has been set up, and that initiative is directed to young people who want to change their hobbies into businesses and their skills into entrepreneurship. That is to complement what we're doing. The second one is the Small, Micro, and Medium Enterprise Development Program, what we call the SMME, Loan Grant Facility. Here you have an initiative that is specifically targeted to small. Mr. Leader of Government Business, Madam President, I hope he's listening. He said it's only for big businesses. I am saying to him, here is a government that has gotten $10 million to be made available to small, micro, and medium enterprises, not big. While we are giving a break to the big businesses through the tax initiative, we are giving support to the small, micro, and medium businesses through a $10 million facility that they can get up to 70% of the finances for free and 30% through loans. And you heard the Minister of Commerce come in here and give us an update of 80 persons or more who have already benefited, who are already qualified to receive that kind of support. Madam President, whenever in the history of the opposition's existence did they ever think of doing something like that for the people of this country? I'm not going down the 24 million argument. I think that was so cheap. But I'm saying here is a government that is finding a balance between small businesses, large businesses, micro enterprises, medium enterprises, and ordinary people, doing everything it can to facilitate economic development. You come to this chamber, you attack it, you don't even know what angle you're taking. and you think that the ordinary St. Lucian, you think of the 43% that you think cannot think for themselves, will give any merit to that argument? Madam President, I want to clarify an issue with reference to the income tax issue that the leader of opposition business raised, in attempting to suggest that we did not give any consideration to our taxpayers and it's about the businesses. I want to remind him that it's this government who recently announced a tax-free threshold from $18,000, persons earning $18,000 a year, to $25,000 a year. How could you sit here and pretend that the government has done nothing to address the plight of people? And by the way, Madam President, this opposition finally is trying to identify with poor people, trying to play heroes for poor people, that we are not paying attention. Madam President, someone who earns $25,000 a year is earning just a little over $1,000 a month. And that is in the lower income bracket of this country. And these people, while they were getting an $18,000 tax-free ceiling, it's now up to $25,000. So if you are earning that, if you are in that tax earning bracket, you pay absolutely no tax. So I just wanted to remind, and the opposition knows that, they know. I'm sorry, Madam President, I really wish we would not have had to do that, but I must. I feel obligated in the interest of the people of this country to explain and, refute those arguments, because they are baseless, they are malicious, and they are intended to deceive. Madam President, there are so many other initiatives that the government has undertaken in less than 2 years, while we are trying to get the tax reform together in steps, not in one go, like saying we're going to remove all the VAT. Yes, and the VAT, the 2.5% is all we did, and could not go any further. We're not doing that. We are taking an incremental approach, step by step, to getting the tax reform structure together. And in doing so, the government recognizes that it has to provide alternative measures and alternative ways in helping people survive. And so here are some of the things we've done. Removing VAT on building materials and sanitary products. Who needs a break there? It's not the big businesses who need a break on sanitary products. It is the regular person who has to decide between sending their child to school and taking care of their hygiene. That is who gets the benefit. Madam President, this government is also recently introduced the free labs and ultrasound for pregnant women. I don't know where the opposition is, where they exist in, that they do not know those things. Madam President, the 80+ initiative was for us a targeted group of persons who I explained last week pay up to what? $3 million a year on health services. These are people who we are giving a break, targeting babies, pregnant mothers, and elderly people. Direct targeted initiatives, and more to come. Madam President, $1,400 TMA, teacher materials allowance, will be going to the teachers this coming month. And we know teachers are among those people in this sector who spend the most money. They spend more in the economy than most other people because of the nature of their job, the income bracket, and the nature of their lifestyle. Madam President, that is money that is going back into the economy, not going into any foreign bank overseas or into any escrow account. Madam President, the pensioners have received their 500. And I heard it's 600 this year. Where is the opposition, Madam President? Are they not aware of this? Madam President, I want to remind them of another one because I feel duty-bound to do so. One of the members of the opposition and I would like to think it was not the leader of opposition business, but I suspect it's he. He leads the charge of the mischief, suggesting that we're not giving scholarships. Wants to talk about scholarships? We have students in here, and I want them to know that it is this government that has given the most scholarships to people in this country. Madam President, I apologize if I seemed a little fired up this morning, but I think I've been provoked sufficiently. And as an educator, I am passionate about the education of the people of this country. And I cannot sit here when people attack the initiatives that this government is doing, attacking education. When they denied our children of access to devices that gave them the power of the internet at their fingertips. Madam President, I'm sorry, but let me share some stats. Let me share some stats with the opposition and this chamber on scholarships. I had to do that. First of all, we have secured more scholarships than ever before in one fiscal period for the children of this country. And I'll give you some examples. Cuban scholarships, a total of 20. Moroccan scholarships, Madam President. Cuban, 23. Moroccan, 20. We have also the OAS, 2. Government of Hungary, 4. The Taiwanese scholarships, we have 29 from the ICDF and another, I'll get the figure for you. Let's leave that one. 29 so far from the ICDF. I'll get the rest for you. UK, Commonwealth, 2. Our island scholars, 2. Monroe College, and that one is what we consider the first generation scholarships for people who have never had somebody in their household who has had a scholarship. 50! And 50 more this year, totaling 100. Madam President, in all, the government would have secured 238 scholarships. And Madam President, to come here, when this year we had the least number of secondary school graduates that we have had as compared to previous years, when students never got anything close to the number of scholarships that we had, and to try to create a mathematical ratio, you know, it is really shameful that I have to stand here and talk about those things. This is a government that has invested in reintroducing a laptop program for our students. And Madam President, I'm not even going into the bursaries and the educational support and all of those things that we are doing for Sir Arthur Lewis. So, Madam President, when the opposition again tried to play heroes to the less fortunate and the low-income people, they have forgotten that we have zero-rated all of the items that were VAT-free. Gasoline, the gas that they put 60% excise tax on. You standing here, Madam President, as an opposition and talking about the price of gas in this country, when it was this government then that introduced a levy of 60% increase on the price of fuel, on the levy, standing here and beating up on gas. Madam President, fertilizers, food, baby products, manufacturing equipment, all of these things are now attracting zero VAT. I just want to mention one more, because again we have students here and I want to remind them that we care about them. Children in grade K, kindergartens, these are 5-year-olds, and grade 1, 6-year-olds, are now going to receive free dental care. So they can smile. We take care of the smiles of our children, because some of them do not have access to proper dental care because their parents cannot afford to go to the dental clinic. So, Madam President, from the womb with the pregnant parents to the infants, to the teachers, to the retirees, to the 80 plus. Tout moun ka jwen sa yo. Tout moun avant ou fait gouvernement ça ka mette barrière place pour aider ou. Là ou fait ou ka jwen. Là ou gêné pour ka travail ou ka jwen. Là ou retouette ou ka jwen. Et puis là où il veut 80 l'année et puis ou a souvier bâton et puis ou ka relax ou ka jwen bénéfice toujours. Somebody used to say, "Don't wake me up." Somebody in their previous government used to warn, "Don't wake me up." I think somebody woke me up this morning. Madam President, all this does is that we accrue a huge set of savings for the people of this country. And if we have to quantify that with some of the small adjustments that we're making, if you have to quantify the savings to the businesses, to the average teacher, police officer, nurse, to the average farmer, and to the average St. Lucian retiree, it will amount to millions and millions and millions of dollars that are in the hands of St. Lucians that they can have as disposable income to spend and to grow this economy. That is simple economics. I'm no guru in economics. I never studied that. But anybody with half a brain will understand that these are simple things that create a better environment for a country to thrive. And what is the opposition coming here to do? Now, Madam President, I have only dealt with one perspective, and that was the leader of government business. Because I always warn them, when they come up here and they try to create those things, they're just feeding me with information, they're just feeding me with content to deal with the mistruths. So, Madam President, on to the second senator from the opposition, my good friend, who then contradicted her colleague by saying that no, this tax break, this resolution is not about the businesses like my colleague said. So I'm thinking, okay, so it's not about that. So what is it about? Oh no, you know what it's about, Madam President? According to my colleague, it's about creating fiscal space for the government to be able to go and borrow money. Yo kwen nou ni mes pwete, madi pwete, nou pa ni mes sa. We're not looking to do madi pwete, but I'll tell you something. You see, you don't always have to disagree with people. What I noticed is that there was actually a positive argument in that comment, and I will share it with you because the argument itself was not bad. It was the intention of the argument that was bad. Because, Madam President, which government in today's world does not want to create fiscal space for its economy? Every government is trying to reduce expenditure, increase revenue, and create more fiscal space to have a better debt to GDP ratio. Isn't that what all governments are trying to do? So if her argument was to suggest that this is what the government is trying to do, then what would have been wrong with that? But you see, she didn't come here for that, Madam President. She came here to hit the argument, conflict her colleague, and then give value to it. So I thank her for suggesting to us that if the government can do this, it will help us create fiscal space. Because the economy has grown by what, 16%? 18.1%? And that is an example of what helps you to create fiscal space. Reduce your debt to GDP ratio so you can now grow your economy. So I thank you see, Madam President, I need your protection. The leader of opposition business is trying to interfere with my arguments. He had his chance to speak and he wasted it. I'm not wasting mine. Madam President, in coming to the Senate to try to distort something that is good, what the opposition has done this morning is to, what we say the emperor is naked? To expose their true intentions. And so, I want to know since when creating fiscal space is an economic sin for a government. I want to know since when that is so. You know what I suspect? During their tenure, what they did was the contrary. Borrow, 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 borrow. Grow the debt portfolio. Create no fiscal space. Try to get us to 100% debt to GDP ratio to attract the IMF and put us in structural adjustment. But the people of St. Lucia were smart. They realized that and they intervened. They intervened on July 26, when our debt to GDP ratio was nearing 100%. And now we are reducing it. We are creating the fiscal space that she has realized, but she comes here and makes it look like it's a bad thing. We are servicing some of the debt, thankfully, because we can grow the economy. So, Madam President, there was an argument raised that, in my view, is not related to this motion. And it has been raised twice. That our temporary senator is making the best use of the audience in the Senate, I suspect, to raise what I consider to be platform issues. I would suggest to her, Madam President, through you, that she take some of these issues to political platforms and avoid raising them, especially since they are not related to the motion. Why are you coming to this honorable Senate to try to raise something about government spending $1 million on someone's house or something in the US? I just want to ask a question about that, Madam President. I want to know whether the senator is referring to a situation where, during a government's tenure, I'm just asking, I want to know if that's the case. She can answer me. Whether that was the case where, during her government's tenure, a diplomat that was hired by her government, whether that diplomat was allowed to remain in their own private homes, their own private house. Follow me clearly, Madam President. Whether that is so, they can tell me, whether that person was allowed to reside in their private home while the government and the people of St. Lucia paid the rent for that particular private home, and then allowed the official residence to deteriorate, causing there to be a need to repair it. And now coming back into this house, taking that argument into a non-related resolution to try to make it seem as if this government is spending money on somebody's private home. I want to know whether that is what happened. Whether you were paying somebody to stay at their own home. Now, you know, Madam President, I do not like those types of, I don't like it. But I feel compelled this morning to deal with it because it came up last week. I sat there and I said, well, you know, let it go because it's not really contributing to the benefit of the debate. But this morning it came back. So I said, no, that cannot be allowed to continue. What is this? What does this have to do with a motion to reduce, you know, the penalties? So I need the opposition to tell me whether our people were paying somebody to live in their home. Leave it at that, Madam President. So, I want to move now to a more constructive response. This is my preferred style, where the independent senator stood and made it very clear that he cannot provide political arguments, which is rightfully so, not his place to do, but gave a very rational, objective, and principled response as to why he believes that this is a positive move from the private sector standpoint. Now, you see, when private sector people speak, politicians, they can jump high, jump low. The private sector is what drives this economy. So when the private sector tells you that you're doing something that is in their interest, it is in the interest of this economy and the interest of the people of St. Lucia. That is why we have a Chamber of Commerce, and that is why when last week they accused us of being forced to change certain things, we told them that we listened to the private sector and we went back and we made the changes. And we will continue to listen to sound advice from the private sector when we have made certain decisions in this country. We don't let anything break. We just listen and we make the changes. Madam President, finally,
Senator, you have approximately 15 minutes to continue.
Oh no, I won't need so much time, Madam President. I won't. And I hope I do not have to stand there again for any longer, for the better part of today, to have to deal with this. And if I have to, I will, you know. I am telling the opposition in advance, if they continue to try to derail the good things that this government is doing with flawed arguments that are baseless, I will not stand here as leader of government business and allow it to continue. I have a duty to the government and the people of this country to not allow this to happen. So I'm just telling them in advance. So, Madam President, I don't mind. I'm a very fit young man. He knows that, Madam President. I'm an athlete. I'm fit. I'm fit, so I can take it. By his own admission last week, he said I was a better sportsman than him. So I'm still fit. Madam President, finally we heard from our Senator Stanislaus. So as you have heard, two conflicting arguments. So I said, okay, what is the third senator going to say? He stood, and the first thing he said was he agrees that this is a good move. So I said, okay, so it was bad for that, now it's good. So, and then he gave his reason that it was good because it has benefits to the private sector and the business sector. That's true. But you see, this opposition has a habit. They can't just let a good thing stand as a good thing. They must find something to create, a but that is going to spoil a good statement. And so he says, well, you should not just give the full break. You should have given them a small percentage of a penalty instead. Well, to this one, I will say it was probably a measured low blow, but I'll let it go. I'll let it go. But one more thing I want to say, Madam President, and that is in agreement with what the independent senator said regarding our star athletes. You see, when I stood up this morning, I was the first speaker, and prior to my reading of the motion or presentation, I did extend congratulations to Julian Alfred, and everybody agreed and we applauded her. I stopped at that. I extended congratulations to her, and we all agreed that she should be commended. But you see, somewhere along the way, it wasn't enough to extend congratulations. And we heard what was said. But I think my colleague, Senator Stanislaus, attempted to bring some, to do some damage control. And he usually has to. And so he suggested that we should not be doing that. While he was saying that, Madam President, I wanted to ask him to just look to his left and just give all of that advice to his colleague. But, he wasn't looking at me, so I didn't interrupt him. But it was in poor taste in this honorable place for us to take an athlete's success, a national icon, and to drag it into that kind of, mess of a discussion. It is in poor taste, and I trust that we shall not do this kind of thing again in this chamber. So, Madam President, I thank you for your patience and your tolerance for my atypical, that's not typical of me, that's not usually my style, but I had to do what I had to do this morning, and I hope that the rest of the day does not descend to that level as we continue to do the business of the people in this honorable place. I thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the value-added tax alteration of rate of penalty order, which alters from the first day of May 2023 to the first day of May 2024 the rate of penalty to 0% on the tax paid up to the financial year of 2021. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas under Section 17 of the Health and Citizen Security Levy Act number 16 of 2023, the Act, it is provided that the Minister of Finance may, by order published in the Gazette, amend the schedules to the Act, and whereas it is further provided under Section 17 of the Act that an order made under the section of the Act is subject to an affirmative resolution of Parliament. And whereas the Minister of Finance seeks approval of the draft Health and Citizen Security Levy amendment of Schedules 1, 2, and 3 order to amend Schedule 1, 2, and 3 of the Act by an affirmative resolution of Parliament 2A. In the case of Schedule 1, include the following imported goods, customs, tariffs, chapters 25, salt, sulfur, earth, stone, plastering material, lime, and cement. Chapter 39, plastics and articles thereof. 2. Delete the following imported goods, customs tariff, chapters 88, aircraft, spacecraft, and parts thereof. Chapter 89, ships, boats, and floating structures. Chapter 99, special transactions. B. In the case of Schedule 2, delete the following services. 8. Sale of motor vehicles. 19. Other financial services activities except insurance and pension funding activities. 25. Other activities auxiliary to financial services activities. C. In the case of Schedule 3, 1. Under paragraph 1, A, in relation to Chapter 17, change sugars to sugars. That's a strange word. B, in relation to Chapter 34, change organics to organics. C, delete as exempted goods the following customs tariff, Chapter 39, plastics and articles thereof. D, include as exempted goods the following customs tariffs, Chapter 49, printed books, newspapers, pictures, and other products of the printing industry, manuscripts, typescripts, and plants. 2. Replace the exempted goods specified under Part 1, Paragraph 2. 3. Include as exempted goods, A, goods under tariffs headings 37.01 to 37.02 and 90.18 to 90.22, pertaining to medical equipment and parts thereof. And B, goods under Chapter 85 and other chapters pertaining to security equipment. Be it resolved that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft Health and Citizen Security Levy amendment of Schedules 1 and 3 order, which amends Schedules 1 and 3 of the Act to A. In the case of Schedule 1, include the following imported goods tariff chapters. Chapter 25, sulfur, salt, earth, and stone, plastering materials, lime, and cement. Chapter 39, plastics and articles thereof. 2. Delete the following imported goods, customs tariff, chapters 88, aircraft, spacecraft, and parts thereof. Chapter 89, ships, boats, and floating structures. Chapter 99, special transactions. B. In the case of Schedule 2, delete the following services. 8. Sale of motor vehicles. 19. Other financial services, activities except insurance and pension funding activities. 25. Other activities auxiliary to financial services activities. C. In the case of Schedule 3, under Paragraph 1, A, in relation to Chapter 7, change sugars to sugars. B, in relation to Chapter 34, change organics to organics. C, delete as exempted goods the following customs tariff chapter 39, plastics and articles thereof. D, include as exempted goods the following customs tariff chapters. Chapter 49, printed books, newspapers, pictures, and other products of the printing industry, manuscripts, typescripts, and plants. 2. Replace the exempted goods specified under Part 1, Paragraph 1 and under Part 1, Paragraph 2. 3. Include as exempted goods A, goods and tariffs headings 37.01 to 37.02 and 90.18 to 90.22 pertaining to medical equipment and parts thereof, and B, goods under Chapter 85 and other chapters pertaining to security equipment. I had to provide all of these details, Madam President, as per the motion, and having done so, just a little bit more of an explanation, a little more practical. Madam President, this levy was actually introduced in the previous sitting, and it was a new levy, and I know there was quite a lot of talk about, well, we rushed it and we didn't consult and we were forced, but it's actually out of discussion with the Chamber of Commerce, with other stakeholders like the Inland Revenue Department, that we have agreed to include some of the goods that you heard mentioned, for example, the organics that were not included, and that we also had to delete some of them for good reason. You heard about the plastics, Madam President, and we understand the implications of climate change, consistent with SDG goal, I think is number 13, that requires us to have certain policies that mitigate against climate change and carbon emission. We know that these expectations are there, so we have had to reconsider. And we may have to return somewhere down the road with further amendments depending on what is going on in the external environment and in our local environment. So I want to just, ahead of any suggestion that we're doing it after anybody was forced, that it is as a result of consultation that we have decided to come to make these amendments. And you will notice also, Madam President, that in a couple of the bills to come, they would have been coming here for second reading, meaning that we had them here for first reading. They had been circulated for the public and the private sector and other entities to review, to give feedback, and then we are returning to have them as second reading. So I submit this motion, this resolution to the Senate, hopeful that it will get the support of this chamber, and then it can be passed. I thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that Parliament, Senators, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft Health and Citizen Security Levy amendment of Schedules 1 and 3 order, which amends Schedules 1 and 3 of the Act to A. In the case of Schedule 1, include the following imported good customs tariff chapters. Chapter 25, salt, sulfur, earths and stone, plastering materials, lime and cement. Chapter 39, plastic and articles thereof. 2. Delete the following imported goods customs tariffs chapters. Chapter 88, aircraft, spacecraft and parts thereof. Chapter 89, ships, boats and floating structures. Chapter 99, special transactions. B. In the case of Schedule 2, delete the following services. 8. Sale of motor vehicles. 19. Other financial service activities except insurance and pension funding activities. 25. Other activities auxiliary to financial services activities. C. In the case of Schedule 3, 1. Under Part 1, Paragraph 1, A. In relation to Chapter 17, change sugars to sugars. B, in relation to Chapter 34, change organics to organics, meaning CS. C, delete as exempted goods the following customs tariff, Chapter 39, plastics and articles thereof. D, include as exempted goods the following customs tariff, Chapter 49, printed books, newspapers, pictures, and other products of the printing industry, manuscripts, typescripts, and plans. 2, replace the exempted goods specified under Part 1, Paragraph 2. And 2, include as exempted goods A, goods under tariff headings 37.01 to 37.02 and 90.18 to 90.22 pertaining to medical equipment and parts thereof, and B, goods under Chapter 85 and other chapters pertaining to security equipment. Leader of Government Business. Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, thankfully there seem to have been no drama associated with this one. I presume it means that it is pretty straightforward and well understood and accepted by this chamber, and so I move that we put it to its third reading. To be
question.
Put the question so that it can be passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senators, now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas under Section 109(1)(a) of the Value Added Tax Cap 1542, the Act, it is provided that the Minister of Finance may, by order published in the Gazette, amend the schedules to the Act. And whereas it is further provided under Section 109(2) of the Act that an order made pursuant to Section 109(1) of the Act is subject to an affirmative resolution of Parliament, except where the amendment is to the custom tariff headings only. And whereas the Minister of Finance seeks approval of the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3, Number 2 order to amend Schedule 3 of the Act and by affirmative resolution of Parliament to include as an exempt import for the period of 2 years commencing from the 2nd day of August 2023 and ending on the 1st day of August 2025, medical equipment for basic or advanced diagnosis, whether for purchase or lease. Now, Madam President, before I continue, I want to warn or inform the Senate that there are some very technical terms in the listed items, and I am in no way a doctor by profession. I may be unfamiliar with them. So please forgive me if I struggle a little bit with pronouncing some of those, but I will give it a try. Madam President, and so they are: A, a computerized tomography scan; B, an endoscopy for upper gastrointestinal, lower gastrointestinal, and a retrograde, now this one is cholangiopancreatography. I think I did that. Oh, wow. Okay. Pays to be a teacher. C, an arthroscopy. D, a hysteroscopy. C, a cytoscopy, and I appreciate the little support I'm getting. A cystoscopy. F, an ultrasound in 3D and 4D, including echocardiography, ultrasound. G, a mammogram. C, a colonoscopy. 1, a fluoroscopy. C, arm. J, magnetic resonance imaging. I think we're doing okay, Madam President. Be it resolved that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3, Number 2 order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to include as an exemption import for a period of 2 years commencing from the second day of August 2023 and ending on the first day of August 2025, medical equipment for basic or advanced diagnosis, whether for purchase or lease, for A, a computerized tomography scan. B, am I allowed to say all of the above listed previously? All of the medical equipment previously listed, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President.
Senators, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3, Number 2 order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to include as an exempt import for a period of 2 years commencing from the second day of August 2023 and ending on the first day of August 2025, medical equipment for basic or advanced diagnosis, whether for purchase or lease, for A, a computerized tomography scan. B, an endoscopy for upper gastrointestinal, lower gastrointestinal, and a retrograde cholangiopancreatography. C, arthroscopy. D, hysteroscopy. E, cystoscopy. F, an ultrasound in 3D and 4D, including echocardiography, ultrasound. G, mammogram. H, colonoscopy. I, fluoroscopy. J, magnetic resonance imaging. Senator Fede.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I want to begin by saying to the leader of TRIO, I want to state categorically that opposition is under no obligation to see the world the same way as government does. And so, whether it's this bill, whether it's another bill, we will continue, Madam President, to advocate in a way that is beneficial for the people of St. Lucia. So I want to make that clear. Madam President, this bill will no doubt help to make it cheaper for investors of medical facilities. There's no escaping that fact. There's no doubt that that is so. But Madam President, as to whether this bill is going to redound to making healthcare costs cheaper to the people of St. Lucia, that question mark still remains. And so it reminds me of the VAT bill. The government comes in with a bit of lipstick and says, oh, we're removing VAT on building materials. And so rather than saying, well, let's address the cost and let's see what this is, what impact this is going to have. A sheet of plywood, $200. You remove the VAT, it becomes $175. That is still out of the reach of many people. So this bill that you're implementing here today shows that the Labour Party never takes its time to do anything properly. You're a piecemeal government. And so by being so piecemeal, what they do, Madam President, is that they go out and they chant these so-called popular slogans to make people feel that they are doing all of this. And we could see that in the last discussion that we just had about scholarships. The leader of government business never told the people of St. Lucia how many secondary school graduates versus how many scholarships
Senator
they're giving.
So I am sorry to interrupt you. Very early in your presentation, and I think you should stick to the motion before us. We have gone through the first one on the VAT, where the Senator gave the rebuttal about the scholarships. I think now we need to move on. Let us stick to the motion which is before us right now.
I have absolutely no problem
Please
with that.
do. Thank you very much.
But I am drawing some similarities.
Senator, there is no but. Move on with the motion.
And so therefore, here we are again. Whatever policies we come to the House with, it should be addressing the cost of healthcare, which is still out of the reach of most St. Lucian nationals. And that is the point. A cost of basic services. So if we take a CT scan, for example, cost of a CT scan is $650. You can get it at Owen King EU. You go to another place, it's $800. You go to another private facility, it's $1,600. And so what the government should be telling the people here today is that the policy that they have brought to the House will address the overwhelmingly onerous high healthcare costs that's affecting many families, whether rich, middle class, or poor in this country. Healthcare cost is out of control. And so therefore, by bringing this bill, they're doing nothing to address the cost of healthcare. This is a strategy of hope. The government is here. There's nothing binding the private providers of medical services that this policy is going to in any way cause them to reduce the cost of healthcare. Now, one of the things it does is that it makes machineries more affordable and it makes it more accessible to consumers. But can consumers really access those machines that are there because of the inhibiting costs? And we're talking private sector now. This is not a system that is going to impact government institutions alone. And so therefore, Madam President, we are not impressed by this piecemeal move again without a more comprehensive look at what the national health cost is, what is affecting most people in the country at this time. Madam President, the real situation is that many families make a choice between eating and buying medication. And that is the honest truth. They go to our public hospitals. There are no medication for them, Madam President. They go to our health centers. There's no medication. They're running out of simple things like the bags to put in the blood bank. So unless the government addresses all of these issues or the perennial problem of healthcare cost in this country, then this would be an exercise in futility. Now, Madam President, I want to state today that when we look at the healthcare costs of the country, there are two reports that I want to quote. That's in the Health System Strengthening Project of January 2020. I can make the report a document of the House if you wish. But there are two approaches there. Consultants Armstrong and Theodore suggested that the national health spend in St. Lucia is $358.9 million, whereby Dr. Stephen King in a 27 report suggests that the total sum required or the demand for health services is $275.5 million. And that is in the report, in the National Health Strengthening Report. Now, here is where it gets interesting. This year, the government is proposing to spend $175 million, or a difference of 100. So that makes it, if I went to Theodore and Armstrong, we have a difference, a gap of $172,453,500 in the gap in the health spend in the country. So it tells you, Madam President, that we are 50%. We are nowhere near where we need to be to spend money in the health service. Now, the government may say, well, we have instituted this health and security levy, which proposes to raise $30 million. Madam President, even if I apply all the $30 million of the health and security levy, it will not be enough to deal with the perennial problem of healthcare costs in the country. The demand far outweighs anything that this government has proposed to do to reach the ordinary people of St. Lucia. Just coming here and removing VAT on medical facilities will not address the problem that is affecting our country perennially. And so the government must come up with a long-term comprehensive plan to deal with this issue of healthcare costs that is affecting many citizens in the country. And so if we can pull out little things that we've done here and there. These are all lipstick, band-aid on a cancer that's eating away at the very fabric of our society. And so, Madam President, we cannot come to this house and give half-truths. We cannot come without rationalizing how much are we spending, what is the difference, what is the gap, and how do we make up the gap? Because then it reverts to, I just will dismiss everything that is said as just mere politics by the government to suggest to people, we're going to get St. Jude's going. Even when you get St. Jude's going, then what are you going to do to address the problem that many St. Lucians face in financing their health costs? And that is the fundamental conversation that we need to have. And so when we come and we try to fool people to say, well, we're reducing VAT on a particular item, and so by removing this, we're doing something great. Fantastic. Medical companies will be able to invest in machinery. Yes, that's fine. People, all of the list of medical equipment that you have listed will be available to the private sector. What are we doing now to ensure that the man on the street listening to this debate who's unemployed, and the Social Economic Review says that 16.5% of them are unemployed of the workforce, right? So if that is the case, how do you get the benefits of these machines from these private labs to unemployed individuals and to individuals who are working in the retail sector for peanuts? I would describe it as, Madam President, there are some people in this country, a doctor's visit is a third of what they make on a monthly basis. A third of what they make on a monthly basis. And so therefore, what you're doing here is simply not enough. It's not going to move the needle on healthcare costs in this country. And so it has to be a lot more creative and innovative. The government could have said that if we're passing on these savings in taxes and we're foregoing much needed revenue for the country, then you could have bind the medical service providers to some kind of regulated price control so that those individuals would use the tax break that you're giving them to benefit the poorer, more vulnerable income brackets of the country. That's the point that we're making here today. And so, Madam President, the health service is critically enabled by the capacity of private service providers. There's no question about that. And so it's a step in the right direction. If you're going to beef up your overall national health service, there has to be a very strong coalition made between the public sector and private health providers. No question. But however, if you're going to engage the private sector, then you've got to engage the private sector in more meaningful ways. So some suggestions, Madam President, while we are going to look at VAT on medical equipment, yes, that's a start. But then there are other things that must be done as well. So private health services, Madam President, government needs to then look at this question as to why the labs are precluded from participating in their their UHC health program that they have, phase 1 of the program. Why aren't private labs able to participate in that as well? Why is it only for the public sector? The government must clarify whether that is indeed true. Because people have been to private labs to do the ultrasounds, and they've been told by private labs that the private labs are not allowed to. And so the government must now look to see if their policy is really working and really affecting people in real ways. Make a call and find out. And so, Madam President, I await the clarification, and I hope that we'll get it in this debate. The private sector as well, as a means of engaging
Madam
them.
President, I stand on a point of order.
What is your point of order, Senator
Madam
Toussaint?
President, the Senator is misleading the House in his mention of that the government has not engaged the private labs in terms of the provision of health care. And it's to my knowledge that even the ongoing and recently launched maternal health care program, that there is engagement with the private labs. And in fact, what was announced by both the minister and the public education on it is that persons who are accessing healthcare under that program receive vouchers from the public facilities to actually go to the private facilities to undertake the labs and the ultrasound. So I'd like a member to correct what he's saying.
Noted, Senator Toussaint. And Senator Fede, I recognize that you asked a question. So if you do in fact have a situation that you wish to discuss outside with the senators in terms of somebody giving you such information, please do so. Apart from that, noted, Senator Toussaint, please move on.
Thank you, Madam President. I thank the Senator for her clarification. I hope that her source is indeed a credible source, because the question still looms large in my mind, because so maybe the senator, if she would like to clarify
Senator,
her source
Senator,
of her information.
were you reporting on a situation that you're aware of, or is it that you were just throwing the question out?
In preparation for this debate, many private labs have said to me that they're not allowed to participate in the government's UHC program. In fact, I was trying my best to understand a lot of the technical schedules which were there, and in my discussion with private individuals, they have indicated to me that they are not allowed to participate, and that people have come to them asking for services under the program in the new UHC program.
Okay.
And they told those individuals that they don't offer those services.
Okay, so I think now I think we have clarified that the UHC has been ongoing for quite a few years. Recently, we only had the launch of the maternal program, and Senator Toussaint has provided clarification. So, like I said, if you have any issue outside of that, you can always have a lunchtime discussion on that. But please move on.
Thank you, Madam President, for your guidance. So the need, therefore, for this coalition to be built solidly between the public sector and the private sector is imperative if we're going to deal with this perennial issue of healthcare cost. So while on the one hand, I'm happy to see that we're giving incentives for the private sector to better afford and develop medical services in the private sector, I don't have any confidence that this is going to redound to lower cost, which is what we ultimately need to do in our policy shaping as it relates to healthcare. Madam President, the other ways that we could engage the private sector would be to maybe look at the ongoing OECS joint pharmaceutical procurement arrangement to see how private individuals can tap that as well. But that, Madam President, can also be linked to a more regulated market space where individuals, if the private sector, for example, were going to tap from this, the buying power of the entire OECS, then therefore it would allow them better prices, but then it gives government the opportunity to say, look, certain drugs that are being sold on the market for maximum prices, that we can look at regulating those prices in the best interest of the consumer. And so these are some of the things I believe that we need to do so that we can have a more effective, a more efficient health service, Madam President, so that the people of St. Lucia can ultimately benefit from what we say that we're going to do. So for me, a one-stroke measure of removing VAT, great. Private investors are going to find medical machinery more cost-effective for them. Fine, great. But I have no assurance that this is going to redound to lower prices for the people of St. Lucia, because there's nothing in the motion today that binds them to a better pricing structure so that the people of St. Lucia, the general public, can benefit. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Senator Jean.
Thank you, Madam President. Just very briefly, Madam President, I rise in support of another splendid resolution by the government of St. Lucia to remove the the value-added tax on a number of medical equipment. Madam President, I just want to, it's always good to go back to history and to recognize the strategic process within which the government of St. Lucia under the St. Lucia Labour Party administration operates. In the Prime Minister's maiden budget address for 2022-2023, the heading of the budget address was empowering our people, transforming our economy. And we saw at the end of that financial year the restructuring of our fiscal situation and our economic space. In the budget address of 2023-2024, it is headed Health and Security, the Pillars for Sustainability. Prior to coming into office, the promise made to the people of St. Lucia, as reflected in the 2021 manifesto, at page 20, under health, it states, and I quote, "A St. Lucia Labour Party government will pursue a health policy that is patient-centered, evidence-based, equitable, accessible, and affordable." And it outlines the focus of that health policy, which we are seeing coming into fruition. Madam President, I want to remind our learned friends here that the current government is in office just 1 week short of its second year anniversary. And hopefully next week, Wednesday, we will have a great celebration, not only of having a government that is 2 years in office, but we've seen 2 years of stability, 2 years of social and economic improvement. And so, Madam President, a resolution of that nature, which is directly connected with the promises made to the people of St. Lucia, deserves much commendation. Madam President, the removal of 12.5% VAT on the equipment that's listed, and I would not even try to pronounce some of these terms, but just having a look at them gives me an idea of the types of tests that medical practitioners will be able to access on behalf of their clients, their people, their patients. Madam President, we know for us in St. Lucia, the haves are most times the ones who can access some of these tests because they would have to travel to neighboring islands and even further afield, United States and Canada and India, to get diagnosis. And so if these pieces of equipment are available in our country, Madam President, for sure, our people will have a better chance of accessing better health care. We cannot have a narrow view, Madam President, and I will continue to say so. And when I'm hearing of we have to do more and have to do more, all I have to tell my friends on the other side, Madam President, is take your time. Wait, it is coming. If we were on the eve of the 5-year term and these things had not been done, I would understand. But 1 week short of 2 years into office, and you're already seeing the removal of VAT on equipment that will allow us to access better health care, and we're still crying, we must do more and we must do more. What I would really like to see, Madam President, and that is within the manifesto of the St. Lucia Labour Party, that there must be proper monitoring of our consumer affairs officials to ensure that exorbitant costs are not applied to the citizens of St. Lucia. And that's not going to happen. It's not the government that will be imposing the cost, because we're seeing that the government is causing reprieve to the people by the reduction of the cost associated with acquiring this equipment. So we must monitor them. We must ensure that you're not seeing increases in medical consultation and other things related to it. But overall, this will redound to improve health care. And how can we fight with an improvement in health care, Madam President? We're seeing a comprehensive health plan coming out of the government of St. Lucia. And let's just remind us of what has been done so far. The government of St. Lucia, just a few months ago, we came in here and we provided assistance to St. Jude Hospital. Through the guarantee, we had to amend the legislation to now allow the government to guarantee loans that the St. Jude Hospital can now take. That was not happening in the past. While we were dancing on the backs of the St. Jude Hospital, they were cash-strapped. They were not able, Madam President, to source loans because the government of St. Lucia could not guarantee it. That was done right in here for the St. Jude Hospital. We also came here again and guaranteed credit card facilities for the OKEU Hospital, loans, and the repayment to Cayman Health City. Are we forgetting? We want a comprehensive health plan. Here is the comprehensive health plan, Madam President. Let's not forget. Madam President, we're going to be sonning the cloche over and over, because on June 1st, I am sure our senators on the other side were invited to the launch of the maternal and child care services that they had right there in Constitution Park.
Blasphemy.
Blasphemy? What's that?
Senator Fede. Senator
What's
Faye.
that?
Senators.
What about
Senator
it?
Jean,
Yes,
would you
Madam
stop,
President.
please? Senators, I would appreciate better code of conduct and behavior in the Senate. This is not allowed. Proceed, Senator Jean.
Yes, so Madam President, we have to pay attention to what is happening and the initiatives, the very good initiatives that the government of St. Lucia is applying, but it has to come, it will come step by step. There's the saying, Madam President, that you can eat an elephant. It is possible for us to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So let's not go for the whole elephant. Let's take it one bite at a time. Madam President, we heard of the 80+ medicine. There is right now a project on the universal health care headed by Dr. Ali Charlene, and we're seeing initiatives that are coming out of it. So you're seeing the government's intention, Madam President, to improve health care. And so while we look for more, we always have to understand and remember that there is opportunity cost. The cost forgone of money that was squandered hinders us from what we want to do today. But through careful and proper economics, Madam President, economics that was taught at school, the economy is being managed properly. So when we hear of suggestions, and I don't think the government is averse to suggestions on any side, that we should be engaged with OECS pharmaceuticals. I know that that's what that happens. The government has for many years been involved, and I wondered whether they've stopped anything.
They did stop. They stopped.
Oh, they stopped?
Yeah, the vaccine.
Oh, yeah, well, I wondered whether the OECS pharmaceuticals arrangement was utilized for the procurement of vaccines. You know, there was a COVAX arrangement where most countries were sourcing vaccines, but we were looking for vaccines from other sources. And so we have to be careful what we say. According to my colleague on this side, we have to be careful of absolution, and try, you can just come out and say, through my fault, through my most grievous fault, I am sorry, my people, for what I did. But try not to spin it around, Madam President. So, in conclusion, I would say, Madam President, that while we want to see an improvement in healthcare, and we're looking for the whole elephant at the same time, we're on the other hand saying that a health and security levy should not be imposed. I mean, yes, my Prime Minister has been making miracles, because there's no other way that I can describe what he has done so far. But I don't know that he has the Midas touch to be able to just touch different things and it turns to gold. And so there must be a source of funding, financing of these initiatives that we want for the people of St. Lucia. And the people of St. Lucia are quite satisfied. They are quite willing to pay for the improvement in their health care. And so I support the resolution to remove VAT on these pieces of equipment, Madam President. And I trust that we will see earlier diagnosis for some of the diseases, some of the problems, the viruses, the different health issues that are manifested, so that by extension we can deal with them earlier. I always see myself as lucky, having gone through the early diagnosis of breast cancer. And I can say from all of the checks that I have done that I am cancer-free for 5 years. And so I would like my brothers and sisters of St. Lucia to be able to benefit from the services that I was able to get. And so we should not reduce the initiatives that are aimed at improving healthcare to the people of St. Lucia just because we want to oppose. And so I support the resolution and trust that our other colleagues here will do likewise. Thank you very much.
Senator Charles.
Madam President, my intention when I saw this motion was to stand up and to give the members on the other side a thumbs up and a clap for this initiative. But you know, sometimes you have a particular intention and then you hear certain things and you feel the need to ask certain questions. So my questions will be directed to the leader of government business, I think, based on the presentation from my colleague and the senator on the other side as well. First of all, Madam President, I did not realize that this was a motion geared at the private sector only. I think that government has a responsibility to provide affordable and accessible health care to every single person in this country. And so when I read this motion, which is why I'm standing in support of it as well, is that I thought that this was perhaps a first step, as was indicated, of government's resolution to provide affordable and accessible health care to everyone in this country. I think from our previous experience that perhaps maybe 50 to 60% of persons during the last administration who came to the office of the Prime Minister or who also came to the parliamentary representatives for assistance, these persons were coming for assistance for medical care. They were coming for assistance to get funding because they have to go to Martinique, to Barbados, to, I don't know, wherever in the USA, either to get a test done, a scan done, to get some type of surgery done, etc., etc. And so you would recognize that healthcare is something that is very, very critical to the population of St. Lucia. And in some way, somehow, all governments need to find a way to provide some sort of a reprieve to persons when it comes to medical health care. I can tell you certainly, Madam President, that in the Ministry of Health during our tenure, there was a budget of a little about $1 million allocated to providing services. Persons would have had emergency health services, and they would come to the Ministry of Health to access that service. And during the last year, I think, of our administration, the budget that was given to us was $6 million was spent. $6 million was spent just in providing support to the general public as they come in. It's almost heartbreaking, Madam President, that as a minister, and I'm sure you were a minister of health, as a matter of fact, that when somebody comes to you as a minister, explaining their circumstances, and they bring all the bills to you and all the doctor's paper, and they need to go to Barbados or wherever, it's so difficult for you not to be able to provide that support, that you will move and shift and move everything around to be able to provide that support. So we certainly do understand that it is very important. Now, I'm saying all of that to ask the leader of government business is perhaps he can provide some clarification to us today in terms of this, and that is why I said I didn't realize it was geared at the private sector. What is the government's position in terms of procuring those critical equipment? Some of them I can't even mention their names. Procuring those type of equipment to ensure that they are available and accessible at the government medical facilities. And I'm talking about OKEU, St. Jude's. A lot of these type of equipment, they are not available here. The value-added tax, as I understand, is being reduced to allow for the importation of those equipment, but it seems that it is geared at the private sector who are going to import those equipment, and then they would provide that type of service. So I wouldn't have to go to Martinique or wherever for a CT scan, and it may be available here. And I know that the member is saying that it's available here. It may mean that it's more affordable, but that's not necessarily true, because if you just look at it basically in terms of manufacturing, Madam President, I'm just going to draw an example. Goods that are manufactured in St. Lucia are more expensive on the supermarket shelf than imported goods. And a lot of persons are crying out a lot of times and say, but why are you making, this is being manufactured in St. Lucia, it's $10, and that is coming from Trinidad, and it's only $5 or $6, and people cannot understand it. But the cost of manufacturing in St. Lucia is very high because of the inputs, electricity, water, etc., whereas in other countries, there are incentives to bring those costs down. And so in terms of those medical services that are required, it does not necessarily mean that because you have given them a reduction on the VAT, it makes it easier and maybe cheaper for them to import the equipment. But when it gets here, it does not mean that the scan is going to be cheaper than what it was going to cost to go to Martinique. So for example, I would have probably need 5,000 EC dollars to go to Martinique, including my airfare, perhaps hotel, and the scan itself, the hospital, etc. And to go to Martinique, it would have cost me $5,000. Who says that to do that same CT scan here, it's not going to cost me $6,000 or $7,000? There's nothing that guarantees that. Now, I don't know, that government can give that type of a guarantee either, but I think it is something for consideration that maybe there is a second step, maybe there is something else that will be needed after this legislation that the Ministry of Health and the government can consider to ensure that not only is the health services accessible, because this creates accessibility, but what is the next step to ensure that there is affordability? And so that is my question, and that is my concern to the leader of government business in terms of this, that the equipment is going to be available. I am hoping that government is going to take the initiative as well to make a commitment to them purchasing some of those equipment and ensuring that it is available at the public hospitals. So that it's not only, I don't only have to go to a private entity, a private lab, a private professional to access those services, but government as part of its responsibility is also providing accessibility to those services to the general public. And it is understood, or it is assumed, that if government is going to provide that service, it should be at least cheaper than what the private sector is going to be offering. And so at the end of the day, Mr. Leader of Government Business, through you, Madam President, I would like to know what would be the position of the government, whether any of those equipment, I read an article just yesterday, actually, it's a coincidence, that Jamaican government had just procured a CT scan machine for $2 million. And again, perhaps in in looking at the estimates and revenue and policy position, is there any money allocated in these estimates for the procurement of any of those equipment? Because we talk about health being our priority, security being our priority. And if health being our priority, it's not only to say we're going to reduce VAT to allow anybody to be able to import it, but if government is serious about that responsibility, then they themselves should be making the commitment as well to ensure that they can provide that service. So, Madam President, I am in support of this resolution, but as I said, I still have those questions towards the leader of government business. Thank you very much.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President. I must admit there was a little bit more sanity to this particular motion, and I think maybe we are beginning to deal with the reality of what's happening today. Just to be brief in my response here, I want to say, first of all, that the idea of referring to the various initiatives that the government is taking that are all connected, comprehensive, and focused, to refer to them as piecemeal, I think is misleading. I didn't want to stand on the point of order to deal with that, but I think I can now refer to the statement repeatedly made by the leader of opposition business and considering or calling or referring to this initiative as piecemeal is incorrect, and I don't think in his context that systematic, comprehensive are synonyms for piecemeal. In my English class, I would not teach my students that systematic is a synonym for piecemeal. So what we're doing as a government is we have a systematic approach where we are very comprehensive in the steps that we take. They are connected. And so the word piecemeal does not describe what the government is actually doing. Madam President, I think there was a statement made regarding the removal of VAT being the panacea or the solution to healthcare. I don't know that anyone has ever suggested from this side of the House or the Senate that when you remove VAT on equipment or any of the initiatives that we've taken is the ultimate solution for healthcare in this country by any stretch of the imagination. So I will remind the Senate that this particular motion does not propose to solve healthcare problems in its totality in this country. It is one of the initiatives that lends itself to the overall comprehensive approach to making healthcare, and I want to borrow a term that we have used, and I heard it repeated by Senator Charles, affordable and accessible. I think in her deliberation just before me, she could have stopped there. She started and made the point that it is about making healthcare affordable and accessible, full stop. That is exactly what this motion seeks to do. It seeks to contribute to our efforts as a government to do exactly that. And I think the issue of the affordability of healthcare and why it is that someone may suggest that the benefit of this motion of removing the VAT on the equipment is not to benefit the regular St. Lucian seeking healthcare. I think it's a little bit, disingenuous to suggest that, because we know that healthcare is expensive. We know that. And whether you access it privately or abroad, or even in the primary healthcare services and medication and so on, healthcare is expensive. And it might have been more beneficial to us if we didn't have to be repaying $7 million in vaccines, and that we would have had a proper healthcare facility in the South for the people of this country. And so I may want to ask the opposition whether that procurement of $7 million worth of vaccine was a benefit to the people of this country. Who was it a benefit to? And not delivering a hospital to the people of this country, was that a benefit? I think, when you raise these questions, you know, the finger you're pointing is pointing directly in the opposite direction. But I will hasten to say, Madam President, that instead of dwelling on this, that we see this motion as one of the steps, and I think the analogy that was presented by Senator Jean with the elephant is really chipping away at an overall effort to improve affordability and accessibility of healthcare at every level in this country. We must not forget that while we are doing those things, our primary healthcare services are being improved in the various health wellness centers around this country. We were here recently where we have now launched the centers of excellence around the country in various primary healthcare facilities. Just yesterday, a gentleman was telling me in my community that he's going to access a particular service at the Miku Health Center, which is in the neighboring community, because it was not available elsewhere. And now he can go 10 minutes away to access it, because this facility is a center of excellence for a particular type of service that he is aware of. And that it starts at that level. It doesn't have to be when you need major surgery or when you have terminal illness. If the primary health care service is of good quality, then it helps you to avoid having people needing to access health care at another level. And if you nip it in the bud with some of the practices and some of the education that we are offering our citizens, for example, on consuming more local products like cassava and bananas, that it contributes to better lifestyle, exercising, and doing some of the things that the Prime Minister apparently is trying to demonstrate through his own leadership, his own, by example, keeping fit and trying to eat properly and trying to rest, you know, and discouraging bad practices. These are some of the things that help us to contribute. It may not be dollars and cents that are being paid, but it will ultimately save you many dollars and many cents if you engage in those practices. Senator Charles asked a question referring to how does the move here not only benefit the private sector? I don't think that this move was solely to benefit the private sector, because the private sector is not the only sector that procures equipment for health services. Our public hospitals also procure equipment. And I believe it is very obvious, very clear, that they too benefit. And I want to remind the Senate, sometimes they come here and they pretend they don't know, Madam President, they know, you know. But they're hoping that we will not mention it. But I need to make sure we mention it. That we have, in recent time, procured some of those very bits of equipment and others like it for the purpose of public facilities, and that can be accessed by our citizens. Just by example, St. Jude Hospital, there was a major issue when we came into government. No X-ray facilities at St. Jude. And we have procured that. So somebody in the South can now get an X-ray at St. Jude and doesn't have to go all the way up to OKEU just for an X-ray or go to a private lab. Madam President, I wish to also bring to the attention of the opposition that CT scans and MRIs machines have now been procured and are available for our people in the public healthcare facility at the OKEU. So that these are examples of the government itself, while it is creating the opportunity for private businesses and sector to get that benefit, but it applies also to the government's public facilities that also procure those very same supplies, and creating more opportunity for everybody to access. So if you want to go to a private lab, you can get all these tests done. And if you choose to go to or maybe you cannot afford and you choose to go to the hospital, you also have the option of getting these done. But the point is, as she correctly, even referring to her own case, being able to get the tests and the diagnosis done early is a big step in avoiding what could have been a terminal condition. So when our people can get the opportunity to get diagnosed because of these bits of equipment, private or public, it is one huge step in cutting down on the cost of healthcare in this country. And so, Madam President, I welcome this initiative. I thank the members. I think I heard them say it was a good thing. Did I hear that? I think they did. And so maybe we're getting there. After what we had this morning, we're getting there. And I look forward to the St. Lucian public benefiting from the affordability and the accessibility to early detection, testing, and other facilities that will be available because that kind of equipment will be available to the people of this country. I thank you, Madam.
Senators, the question is that Parliament, by affirmative resolution, approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule 3, Number 2 order, which amends the Schedule 3 of the Act to include as an exempt import for a period of 2 years, commencing from the 2nd day of August 2023 and ending on the 1st day of August 2025, medical equipment for basic or advanced diagnosis, whether for purchase or lease, for the computerized tomography scan, an endoscopy, B, for upper gastrointestinal, lower gastrointestinal, and a retrograde cholangiopancreatography, C, arthroscopy, D, hysteroscopy, E, cystoscopy, F, an ultrasound in 3D and 4D, including echocardiography ultrasound, G, a mammogram, H, a coloscopy, I, fluoroscopy or C-arm, and J, magnetic resonance imaging. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, with much... Madam President, I move that this Senate stand suspended until 2:45.
Senators, the question is that this sitting of the Senate be suspended until 2:45. I now put the question. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
All rise.
Venu au bout de session Sénat là aujourd'hui, c'est un Sénat qui une session qui était très intéressante côté tout le monde présent là, pas une personne qui a pas présent aujourd'hui, tout le monde enfin il y en a seulement commencement c'est sénateur Nancy Charles qui est venu encore quand il était fait la semaine passée, il est venu représenter sénateur Ferropolis qui par Gaïa. Mais discussion là, il y a 3 motions qui discutaient aujourd'hui, qui étaient très intéressantes à tous les deux façades là. Avec en plus qui session c'est discussion sur ces émotions. Nous aussi tenons chaque parole à sous Julian Alfred, ça c'est Cicéro, comme ça, qui a fait assez bien en affaires athlétiques, ça fait courir, qui a fait très bien avec il y a un pays Hongrie à présent côté, il fait tellement bien que pour première fois à un niveau ça là. Virgil?
Yes. Yeah, all the members, just to take off from what you were saying, all the members gave a glowing tribute to Julian Alfred. I think we could have seen the sense of pride, but even that came up for debate as well, for some kind of caution from the independent senator who was saying, this is a national achievement and her success shouldn't be politicized in any way. But going to the substantive matters of what happened, and in the morning session of the meeting of the Senate, the 3 resolutions that were presented, relates to, of course, the removal of the penalty of VAT. That was the first motion. The second motion dealt with also the health and security levy. The amendment basically dealt with two aspects. One, it included some more items on the list that wasn't included, such as salt, sulfur, earth, stone, plastering, lime, and cement. And we saw some removal of some of the commodities that were on that list to be exempted. That is the health and security levy, and the removal of that, some of them were, for instance, the sale of motor vehicles, plastics and articles, and we saw included to be part and to be exempted from the health and security levy with things like printed books, newspapers, pictures, manuscripts, etc. And also, we saw the inclusion of some sophisticated medical equipment, Michael, to be included on that list.
Discussion, comme on te dit avant, était très intéressant. Avec opposition, you représenté et parler à ces différentes motions. Comme on dit, c'est trois sénateurs, tout le monde en plein aujourd'hui, sénateur en plein. Avec, il continue après-midi avec trois billes, ça c'est côté gouvernement, ça qui discuté en cas constitué, il continue aujourd'hui, ça c'est les affaires Nations Unies, ça c'est loi qui a concerné l'autre pays, et aussi ça nous a créé procedure of crime, ça fait situation crime, et un changement et bien amendement pour income tax. Ça a fait après-midi, nous vieux commencer à 2h, ça c'est un cas pour 3h après-midi.
Yes, so as Michael said, we return here at 2:45 this afternoon, where we will see further discussion on three bills entitled the United Nations Sanctions Bill, which is down for a second reading, a Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill, also down for a second reading, and we have an Income Tax Amendment, which will be down for the first reading. So join us back here at 2:45 when the Senate of St. Lucia continues discussion on the matters of importance for the country. I am Virtually Auntie.
C'est Michael Gaspar, vieux jeune et nous à ce Yonka pour 3h. Nous avons vu maintenant en studio.